and love appears to be in the air. Breeze singing and trees living, a time of generations dying. The sea is full yet so many are falling, many born to die in neglect with their unaging intellect. Two ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go. I shall transcend this life so bold. How age makes a man invisible. He wanders alone, tattered as his clothes. Forgotten soul finds song in his heart. Monuments of magnificence the seas have taken me to. Byzantium. Two ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go. I shall transcend this life so bold. Sages standing in holy fire, spiraling as the masters of my soul sing. Desire overwhelming, don't deny but consume my heart. I know not what it is, but take me to eternity and unknown things. Two ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go, and I shall transcend this life so bold. Once free from this body, I'll never come back again. Not to this place I'll be where goldsmiths work. To entertain the lords and ladies of Byzantium, it matters not what is the past, or what is passing, or is to come. Two ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go, and I shall transcend this life so bold. Nervousness born from the earth, my madness came by storm. I heard heaven and hell, but how can I be mad? Across the table, I'll tell you the tale. I wanted for nothing from the old man, not even gold. I'll tell no lie, it was the old man's eye, a veiled pale blue eye. Peering into it, my blood ran cold, and my heart is where I hold a secret plan for this old man. A descent into madness, it cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating, the heart kept screaming. You may think me mad, but how for madness knows nothing. I sit here, my mind clear, this tale I tell. Are these the sounds from hell? 7 days I crept planning, but never did the eye reveal itself till that night. A slip, a sound, awakened did he, but I could not flee. I felt his fear that we tried to comfort and steer his dread, for he lay back in his bed and flash. I jumped on him, dragging him down. Now no more sound. He lie there, dead on the ground. A descent into madness. It cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating. Swept over me, no one would ever find the body. Sometime now they came, sat chatting, but I could hear it, the heart beating. It grew louder and louder, I could no longer contain myself as I slid the chair. They still stayed there, not leaving, my anxiety rising. They not hear the beating heart coming from beyond the dark. No longer could I stand it, came my admittance. Here it is, the beating of his hideous heart. A descent into madness. It cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating. The heart kept screaming. As I travel this life alone, two paths both unknown. For what already has this life shown? The first step I diverged from normalcy. No paper cut out life for me. I did it my way, not much more to say. Less traveled, dark and cold, I came upon a fork in the road. I pondered, both mind free. The fall had come, for yellow is the autumn tree. Both I long to travel, for I'm but one. I could not see, for both were bent, the overgrowth and canopy. Where will destiny lead me? The first step I diverged from normalcy. No paper cut out life for me. I did it my way, not much more to say. I began my journey on the road less traveled. Regret haunts me at times, looking back wondering where the other path myself would find. But both paths are traveled equally, for many take the zombie road to normalcy, and others seek individuality. From the wear on the trail it appears 50-50. With every footstep came pitfalls and risks, rewards and opportunities. Looking back, what did I really miss? The first step I diverged from normalcy. No paper cut out life for me. I did it my way, not much more to say.
Hot in here. Can you turn the AC up? Jeez Louise, it's warm in here. Man. Coming in and it's all hot and stuffy in here. Like, geez. All right, guys. Sorry, we started the stream earlier and then I had to leave. We had to literally go and deal with work and then come back. So that's
never ends.
Never ends, man.
Always something.
Anyways, be nice to be born rich. Wouldn't it be nice to just be rich? You just do what you want. You'd be like, oh, I just have money. I'm just going to go to whatever.
Go do what I want when I want.
Yeah, be great.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be a great man.
Somebody's noise complaint. You're like, oh, you have a complaint, do you?
Huh?
Really?
Well, I have money.
People are in the pool, are they? Well, why don't you do this? Take the letter F and then the letter C and K and find a vowel in between those. And then off. How about that?
While you twirl your mustache.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
It's like you get a noise complaint at an apartment, so you just go knock on the door. They open it. You just throw money in their face. Shut up.
Be like, I have a complaint about they're called neighbors. Well, they're being loud. Don't be in an apartment.
Start making it rain on them. Here you go, savages. Be quiet. Be silent.
Hush
there you
yourself.
go. What will that take? 400, 500, 600, 700, 800?
Nice.
I can do this all day. Whatever shuts you up. Whatever shuts you up. I don't care.
I'm sorry,
Be
peasant. I don't carry
That's
pennies.
what people do with their kids now. They put them in front of a television.
Oh yeah.
That's how Baby Shark exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife made some baby songs too. If you guys want to hear, like, for kids, it's monotonous and annoying. So you know it's good for kids. Kids love it. They love that monotonous. What is the one song? There's two of them, 2 or 3 of them she made. They're like for children.
Yeah,
I heard them and I was like, these are awful.
It was me and you who heard them, and I was so annoyed.
And she was just like, yeah, but they're for children. Children love them.
Yeah. It's like,
that's exactly what I thought. I was like, this is exactly what I would hear out of like my nephew's house or something.
being awful is the point. They're like Geico commercials.
Who was it that was complaining about Baby Shark? Oh, Marty.
Oh, yeah.
He's got grandkids and they're like, Baby Shark, Shark, Shark. And he's like, it's just sickeningest thing. You know,
all day,
every day. And then your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He's like, I got to listen to this all.
He just looks so tired.
Yeah. Your sister has Irish twins, basically.
Yeah.
1 year apart. And yeah. So Jose's just like, he goes, I got to hear this all day. It's just constantly whatever. And so everything's going on, everything's happening. So we got 220 people in here. So I got to make an announcement. We're probably going to take the Tuesday night show and it's going to become the members only show. So last Sunday, and this isn't for you to get your wallets out and start throwing money, nothing like that. We're not doing that. It was abysmal. We got like $50 and that doesn't pay the bills. So we have to do something. We can't keep doing this because I'm spending way too much money and time on the show and I'm not getting it back.
It's taken away from the business.
It's taken away from the business.
It's hard to run both.
Yeah. And, and so we got to be fair. We got to do what's right by our new partners and the people that we're going to be dealing with. So that's it. I mean, we can't do the giveaways, so because then it's like a sweepstakes or some kind of crap, some kind of rule.
Yeah, some red tape.
So we're not going to be able to do that. So we can give away for free, but we're building the store. So that's that. But we still have lots of inventory of things. So we're going to do giveaways on certain days. Tonight will be a giveaway night. So Wednesday and Sunday will definitely be giveaways. And then You know, and somebody asked me about the business as opposed to this, and I'm like, you're talking about a flashlight to the sun,
Yeah.
money wise.
Hmm.
Like you're talking about take a flashlight and you're like, oh, that's cute, and then look at the sun.
Only we could clone ourselves.
This business doesn't pay my bills. It pays the rent here at the studio, which I guess helps my business because this is my office too. The show pays for my pets.
The dog food.
The dog food and cat food. The show does those things. But it's like really only it's like a handful of people that are really doing it. Everybody else is just kind of, and I'm not lying. I've had the people that donate to the show are complaining about the people who don't. They're like, well, they're freeloaders. And I'm like, well, we'll fix that. You know, but there are people who are on fixed income. But the people who are helping are like, they don't care. They're like, look, we're paying for this. And so I've had people actually petition me over and over again for the last few years to move things behind a paywall because we wouldn't be at war with these maniacs if we did that. Because they don't work.
No.
So they're not going to run over there and pay $10 to watch me so they can stalk me. Now, they're pretty dedicated, but I don't think they're that dedicated. I don't think they're dedicated monetarily.
At the very least, if they were, it would cost them $10.
I think it would put an end to that. So we're slowly going to probably phase out YouTube. I mean, I'm just telling you the truth, man. Some people have messaged me and said, well, I can't afford $10 a month. Well, do you pay for Netflix and do you pay for Hulu and all those other things? Because that adds up.
Be good if we could
I just cut a bunch of that out of my life because I don't watch it. So.
Yeah. If we could eventually go like fully syndicated, like that would probably be the way to go in the future.
Well, we had it and then we quit.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was our own fault. Maybe, I don't know. Bottom line is this. I'm tired of the stalkers. I'm tired of the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
And as much fun as it is to be stalked 24/7, and know that people really care about you that much, you know. If I was a needy person and I was just like, you know, those are the kind of people though that they'll leave the whorehouse and be like, I just didn't feel loved. You know, I'm not that guy. I know it's a transactional thing. I don't do it, but you know, I know guys that do, and they're just like, you know, they know the deal. This woman doesn't love you. You go to a strip club, they're like, dude, she's digging me, man.
You see the way she was looking at me?
She likes this vest I'm wearing. She should I look good in blue. You look good in green. She likes the greenback. She likes that dollar bill, y'all. She ain't looking at you, dude.
Even strip clubs are a bit much. You'll see them do it at bars. The bartender's flirting a little.
Yeah, the bartender's
the
like
waitress
twirling her hair, and I know because I ran a bar, and there was one girl that worked for me who absolutely was just mean as hell to guys and never gave them the time of day, and they threw themselves at her. I would have fired her if that recipe wasn't working because I'm not going to say her. Well, her name was Sam. And I said, Sam, you're not nice. She goes, look at my tip jar. Look how many people come to my well. And I'm like, she goes, get out of here. I'm like, okay.
Good point.
Can't argue with that.
I couldn't argue with it.
I mean,
Tommy and
money
Ash were like, hey, this is, we had a meeting. You were like, she's mean to the people. Well, yeah, but it works. Guys just love it. They're like, I'm breaking her down, man. It's been 16 years. Eventually, she's going to go out with me. I can see it, man.
She only punched me 3 times instead of the 5.
You only want what you can't have.
And you're like, no, she's not, dude. You know, the other day, she rubbed up against me. I'm like, dude, she smacked you with a box of beer because you were in the way. How about that? And that's not happening. I got friends like that, though. A girl will slightly look over at them. They're looking at their phone. They'll look up like this real quick at them on the bus. Mm-hmm. And they come out. They're like, I'm in love, dude. I met this girl on the bus. It's a good thing my truck broke down. It was fate.
It was love at first sight.
You're like, what happened? Dude, she was totally digging me. She was staring at me. I videoed it. All you see is this.
Love at first glance.
He's like, I was staring at her. Slow it down. You can literally see the love in her eyes. It's like,
you see something in her eyes.
You see her turn back at her phone real quick.
She's probably scared.
I was staring at her for 20 minutes.
Looking at her like, you know, you look like Howdy Doody. You look like a terrorist Howdy Doody, you know, and they're over there like trying to look good and their eyes are all big. You know? And you're just like, dude, tomorrow I'm wearing the bow tie. Don't do it, dude. Don't do it.
That's not love in her eyes. That's fear. Yeah.
It's disgust.
Yeah, fear for how much she's going to fall in love with me, bro. That's all. She's just afraid to fall in love.
Oh, man. And let me tell you.
I can fix her, man. I can fix her.
What about when she pepper sprayed you? Pepper sprayed love, man. I felt the fire.
I told her I like hot food. She was digging me, man.
She's passionate, bro.
You know, these guys that I used to hang out with, and I'll say their names: Scorpion, D, Squid. Y'all are all catty like women. Don't try to act. Jack, you were too. So y'all all were. Don't try to act it. I would try to be a bro. Like I'd try to be like, I'd be like, hey, dude, that shirt, chicks ain't gonna dig that shirt, bro.
Mm-hmm.
True story. All right. Well, we still have under 300 here. True story. I was at the bar, and there was this girl. She was very exotic, whatever. But she was real pushy with me. But it was too much because then I'm like, are you a witch? What are you doing? Like, I'm trying to figure out because I have a weird mind anyway. Here? And I'm like, why are you so into me? And then my friend was over there like, yeah, man, she's digging me. And I'm like, dude, she's literally asking me to take her home. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He's like, well, she's here for me. That's the kind of catty bullcrap that they were into. And I would tell them, dude, that shirt is not going to work. Dude, that shirt don't work. Don't do that, man. You know. Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, okay. Don't wear the shirt. Yeah. So you get the chicks. Yeah. And I'm like, no offense. I'm not trying to say I'm like a handsome guy. But you see that I talk on this show, right? I got game. Like, I can talk. I've always been able to talk. And for some reason, girls like guys that can talk, right?
Who'd have thunk it?
So I don't need to go up there looking like dressed to the nines, although I did dress pretty snappy back in the day. And I would just go up there with a fresh haircut and just be like, what's up, you know? And my friends would be over there like, and you're looking over and you're like, dude, I would hook them up so many times. I'd be like, that's a great dude over there. I'd talk them up and then they'd go over there. I'm not greedy. You know, 40 girlfriends at once that's enough for me. I don't need more than that. 44. That was it.
I'm a humble man. I only need a small harem.
That's right.
Just a modest.
And now I have harem. Nelly, and that's all I need. I don't need anybody else or anything. I just told them, I said, look, man, and still to this day, they're catty. I put a picture up of myself. Thank you so much for that, Debbie Falter. Thank you for helping.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the cheapskates out there watching, you're not going to help. I know you're not. So I put a picture up yesterday, and I'm not even going to call him out on it. One of my old friends. He's in Japan right now, wrestling or whatever the hell I don't know what he's doing. He's on TV or some shit. He messaged me, goes, "Oh, nice try, bro." Ho ho ho. Nice try for what? I took a picture of my gut. I was like, "Look, dude, I'm not a lard ass, dude. All right, go look. It's on Facebook." And he's like, "Nice try, bro. Ho ho. Still trying to get the ladies, huh?" And I'm like, "Do you know that I've been married for 8 years?" Most people, when they're married, they just give up. My wife don't take that crap. She's like, go to the gym. That's it. She's got taste. That's it. You know. And I like to look good. You know, but I don't want people all being too much because you get some weirdos. You get some weird people. And today at the gym, there was a weird person that came up and was all like, "You need a spot. You need some help. You know, whatever." And
I was just trying to be helpful.
She looked like somebody. It was a woman. She looked like somebody's grandmother.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It was a hot grandma, but still.
Yeah, there was one.
You know what I'm talking about. So I was just kind of like, no, I'm good. She's like, you're so handsome. And I'm like, there's like 50, 60 people in there. I'm just like, hey, the bake sale is going on. I'll be there. Yeah. Whatever you got going on. I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. But she was probably 20 something years older than me.
Freshly at the American Legion.
She didn't do all that. She didn't talk like that. She looked like she was probably 65.
She was in the gym, dude. So
she was in the gym. She was probably 65. But she was really like kind of.
You didn't see her? There was one grandma in there. I was like,
dude, and she was
pretty.
She was basically like she told me that she's read my book. Because she came up to me and she was like, the people at the front told me that you had a show, whatever. She's like, she read my book and didn't even know that I had a show. And now she's been really cool. So she's going to check it out. So, hey, not bagging, but I'm married. I said I'm married like 3 times, I don't try. I'm up there sweating. I probably smelled like a muskox, I'm just being honest. I'm not even bragging. I'm just telling you. But I'll tell my friends and they'll be like, yeah, what is your ankle, dude? What is your ankle, SpongeBob? Dummies like angles. Patrick Starr over there, It's like, dude, just keep being the way you are. And then complain at the end of the night that you can't get chicks. How about that? Or, and some of these guys, they think that getting a chick is like going to a grocery store and buying some Pringles. I like that kind of chick. I'm going to go get that. And then they come back without the Pringles. Where's the Pringles? I just wasn't hungry.
It's better than the guys who
you didn't get it.
Fake a personality anytime they come around a girl. I can't stand
dude.
that.
Okay. Well, okay, I'm gonna bag on my brother right here. We go on a double date, and here's my brother, like, he's that guy, right? We got on a date with these two girls, and I said, I told you, I said, let's just be ourselves, let's be real, right? You know, the Turbo 22 is now. It used to be the place with the queso. What's it called? Magnolia Cafe.
Yeah.
I said, just be yourself. I'll be myself. Let's not put on any airs or whatever. Here he is. He goes, oh, chips. You remember? I told this story.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I looked at him like, I hate you so much. Dude.
The refined gentleman act.
Dude.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he's doing the milady thing. And I'm like, I said, let's be normal. Why are you being that guy? Because that is not who you are. You're swilling bar fighter. Okay. Just be who you are. We're bouncers. Well, I wasn't. He was at the time. But, you know, I ran the joint. But, dude, it was a place. I had to fight all the time. I was like, what are you doing? These people are going to think we're somebody else. This isn't who we are. Oh, whatever. Can't win for losing, man.
Mm-hmm.
They always do that. Fake ass people. I love you, brother, but you know you did that. He laughs about it. He thinks it's cute. It wasn't cute. I'm still smarting from it 22 years later. No, but there was a lot of people that did that crap. They all did that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're like hanging out with somebody and they're like, oh, crap. And I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, okay, this woman thinks I'm Australian. So just go along.
I'm not.
She walks up. He's like, good day, my lady. How you doing? You're like, yes. We just got back from Melbourne.
I also told her I was a Formula One driver.
The koala bears. And then she's just like, really? And you're a race car driver? Yeah, but I let him win because I have to help him because he's the best. And
yeah, she's a side.
He's
gig,
awesome. You know? I can't compare to him. That's what some guys think is a wingman. You're supposed to just belittle yourself to them. They're like, look, okay, I told you had a hunchback. You got to put this pillow in your back of your shirt. I'm not doing that. I'll give you $50. Please, dude, just play along. Act like you're a retard. You got to go, yes, thank you for being my friend.
May I have a bug, master?
I told them that you had a patch. Wear this. You're like, just to make it real, can I shoot you up with insulin? No! That's where I draw the line.
I also told her that your name was Igor.
Igor. Yeah, there you go. Igor. You got your eye gored out. That's one of my friends would think of something stupid like that. Because, you know, Igor, he had no eye. No, he didn't. What pirate is this you're talking about? And then they're always like, oh, you don't want to back me up, bro. Then you're not being a bro. I'm like, okay. Being too much of a bro. How about that? So we got people in the chat now. We got 3:37. Let's get started here. I know we're getting a late start here, man. But so this thing we're going to talk about tonight, and it's pretty specific. It's Bigfoot Dogman. But let me turn this down real quick because I'm echoing here. So it's Bigfoot Dogman, but there is some other weirdness that goes on here. I should say this. I thought it was going to be very specific, very cut and dry. But when I talked to this guy, it became a whole nother ball of wax. Now, if you remember the story that we talked about, well, it's not a story, it was stories or encounters from a group of people from Sunday. We talked about this Bigfoot creature. It was really Bigfoot mostly. And it was like a vampiric entity. And I think it was the same creature. A lot of people were messaging me saying, I think those are two different things. Yeah, because you think Bigfoot's a big monkey guy running around with fleas out in the woods. Okay, that's great. You keep thinking that. But I'm pretty sure this was the same thing. And I do believe they're vampiric. I know I have my reasons. So this guy, Clifford, who was the neighbor of Leslie, Leslie was the lady from Sunday who had the encounters. Now, this was in the Ozarks up in the north of Arkansas, near the border with Missouri. And there was a lake there, or there is a lake there. I say there was, but after the meteor, it was gone. No,
in the long ago.
In the before time, the long ago. No, there's a lake there, right? And it's a huge lake. I mean, everybody probably knows it's the Boston Mountains. It's like there's a lake there. You know what it is. But I told him I wouldn't say anything remotely close, whatever. This guy didn't give a crap, though. But that would tell you where the neighbors are, which is where Leslie and them are. They don't want to be messed with. Her and Patrick are just kind of like, we want to be left alone. I was like, that's fine. But Rex is a mutual friend of these people. And then there's another guy named Rudy. who was involved in all of this, and they are all friends. So it was Rex, Patrick, Rudy, Patrick being Leslie's current husband. So you had Patrick, Rudy, and then Rex, and then that, not the crazy guy we were talking about, the vampire dude or whatever that was messaging us.
Yeah, not Rex Rude.
Not that dude, but this, and people remember him. But this guy, his name's Cliffy. I asked him if I could just, I don't want to call him Cliffy. It sounds too close to somebody who I don't like's name. And I was like, I'm going to call you Cliff or Clifford.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, call me Clifford. I said, absolutely. So Clifford had an encounter. His wife's name was Eleanor. I kept saying Elaine. He messaged me straight up too. He's like, hey. She's like, Eleanor. I'm like, sorry. So there we go. We got the name right now. It's not Elaine. I was wrong. I'm not perfect. I get things wrong sometimes, very rarely, but I do. You know, it happens very, very rarely. And so I have somebody that I'm going to bring on, and we're going to talk about this because last night she was on a show. Let me just bring her on real quick. What's up, milady? How's it going?
Good evening, good
Come on,
sir.
guys, change our personalities.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody started acting goofy and stuff.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I did that, but I don't like change my personality. I just changed my voice.
A lot of people do that.
Dude,
I deepen it a bit.
I don't do anything.
I don't think you need to do that.
Anything.
Your voice is already pretty deep.
Well, there's a reason. I deepen it and I kind of soften it because then they have to lean in closer just to hear me.
Oh.
That's a good trick. That's a good one. What?
So Monica is so like just a very chill person, like a very cool person.
Yeah, she's
You know,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like you don't have to put on airs. Monica's that just cool. She don't, she's married too. You don't gotta be like all,
Yeah, you don't have to be like my lady. How are you this
exactly.
morning?
Madam.
Yeah, madame.
Madame.
But I don't want to just take away from the fact that she is a female. So let's be polite and everything else. But you don't got to go out of your way and trip all over yourself.
No.
But here's the thing, last night, and I give Nellie the credit because she messaged me and she says, "Hey, Monica's on," and I'm like, "I don't give a shit." And she's like, "Well, she's on with text," and I'm like, "Oh, she's on with text."
I double
Let me go ahead and get on there then if it's text. And I was like, I don't watch these people's shows. I don't have time for this. I don't even look at myself in the mirror. Look at my hair. I don't give a crap. I'm joking. No, seriously, what happened though? I went on there and I saw you on there with text, and I was actually doing my route last night. I have to do a route.
Right.
I have a paper route. I do on the bike. And
People
so
expect their news, sir.
I had people chasing me around. Where's my $2? Or I guess I'd be chasing them around, right? For the $2.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do that. I had a paper route when I was a kid. And I was like a little 11-year-old kid, 10-year-olds. I was 9. I was 9, and I had to go knock on adults' doors and be like, "Can you pay me, please?" And they'd be like they're doing me a favor.
Yeah.
This one guy, he was such a jerk. He was a big, tall guy, and he put the money up real high, and I kept jumping for it, and he kept doing it, and I got in trouble for this. But I was like, you know what, F you, and I just walked off.
No.
And then he called my dad because his brother worked with my dad at the power plant. My dad's like, "Did you tell a grown-up to F off?" I told him what he did. And my dad was like, going to say something to him. But my dad's like, "That guy's like 6'6". I'm not doing that." He's just like, years later, his son, who's a little older than me, he was like 14 when I was 9. He's about 5 years older than me. I worked with him doing security, like protection, stuff, whatever. And I was like, "You look just like this guy that used to live on Vogel." And he goes, "In Rockdale?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Holy crap, man, that's my dad." He goes, "I used to live there." And I was like, "Oh, dude, you should go to school with my sister." I was like, "You were a punk ass." And so was your dad. I totally said it right to his face. And he was just like, he was scared of me though. So he was just like, "Yeah, my dad could be a jerk. I don't want to be responsible for whatever he did." And I'm just like, "It's cool, man, whatever." His name was Cole. We became good friends. And so for years we were friends.
That's good.
But yeah, we ended up working together. He was just like a bartender. And I was like, "Dude, you literally lived down the street from me." I lived on Calhoun, you lived on Vogel. So anyway, true story. And his dad did that to me. Like he sat there and then he called the newspaper people and told them that I was, I cussed at him. And so this lady was my boss. She was really sweet. She was an old lady. And her name was, not started with a G, but it was like a Janine.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Josh, if you do that again, I'm going to have to fire you." And I was like, "That guy is so mean." She goes, "Well, I'm going to give him a call." And I thought, oh, well, that's going to really do something. I close the door and I hear all this yelling and screaming and cussing. And I'm like, I'm not even kidding. I opened the door and I'm like, and she was just like, and don't ever do that. Blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, don't ever deliver to him again. And I'm like, holy crap. Then I found out that she used to be a school teacher and that she was mean as hell. But she was sweet to me. She'd bring me cakes and pies and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but I had little chubby cheeks and she'd always do this. He's so cute. And she'd give me candy. And her grandkids were really annoying, but I was nice to them. I was like, hey, children, whatever. They were littler than me,
Fellow children.
Yeah, and if I left my bike out there, they'd get on it and ride around on it. And I'd be like, I want to tell them something, but their grandma's right there. And she was nice to me and she paid me good. So, it was a job. I've been working my whole life. People are like, oh, I work all the time. Always working. So this story, though, we were talking about from the Ozarks. Now, I told you about it, Monica. When you were on with Tex last night, you guys started talking about the Fae.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I was actually not going to do this story tonight. I was going to dig down deeper and we were going to plug it on Sunday, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So tonight was a different story. So I apologize to the people who don't even know that I was going to do their story tonight. I don't need to apologize.
I apologize. People absolutely no.
Was that me? He was going to do? Was that my story? Watch, some people are going to start messaging me now. Were you going to do mine? And then you just didn't? You're a jerk. No, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm not a jerk. But here's the thing. This guy, he was on a boat, Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
During the time, now you have to go back and kind of listen to Sunday's show, but during the time when all that was going on, and then this woman's daughter bought a mirror. Now, her daughter, I will say this, her daughter is obstinate, to say the least. Like she didn't want to get rid of the mirror. Mm-hmm. And she took it back to her house and she waited until something bad happened. And her boyfriend, which is now her husband, her fiance, was like, crap, there's something here. It's happening. So he went out with some friends and they had a wreck. And I didn't say that in last Sunday's show, so I had to preface that. I got to say that they wrecked and he came home from the wreck, which his friend, he was barely hurt. He broke his arm. That was it. Like one of his arms. His friend he broke his ankle and his leg. Both. Yeah, it was bad. That side where they got hit, but the police said that they were lucky to be alive. The EMS workers, all the firefighters, they were just like shocked that they lived. So he got rid of that mirror because even after it broke and hurt her mother, she tried to keep it. She went out and got it out of the dumpster. Like everything, it was ridiculous. Jeez. So he was like, dude, what is wrong with you? Well, remember I mentioned, what's his face? Clifford. I think I called him Rudy the other day when we were talking about him, but I didn't. That's a different guy who I didn't mention on Sunday. But him and his friend Rudy were out fishing, and they were on this lake. And hey, what's up, Bigfoot Rob? So they were out on the lake, and they saw something. It was early morning. You know how? And people, if you fish, I used to fish until I was in my teens, and then I just haven't done it. I just don't have time for it. It would be great. It's therapeutic. But if you fish, nighttime at dusk and in the morning is a really good time to go. And they really bite. So they were in the morning and they had that kind of morning haze, that mist,
fog on the water.
Yeah, fog on the water. And there's this cove where the boats aren't allowed to go in that area. And it's kind of just for people that want to fish. And so he's like, people go there and they fish. And he said that, that's what we were doing. This fog rolled in about an hour in. He goes, and the fish were biting. He goes, that's the most annoying thing. He said, fish were biting. He goes, and wouldn't you know, some ghost shit happens. This is exactly what this guy told me. And he's a pretty colorful old dude. He's like 62, but he's not even graying. He's like me. He's like ancient, but
whatever.
Wears it well.
He doesn't look old, No, he doesn't. He said he told his words, not mine. Cliff says, I'm ancient, but I don't have gray hair. And I said, how old? He says 62. I'm like, that's not ancient. Okay. It's not. But to young people in their 40s are like, they're like super old, dude. Like super old,
I'd say when you're in your 40s, you start realizing that, maybe 50 and 60 isn't that old. Because that's right around the corner.
Yeah. Once you're in your 40s, you're like, they're only 50 something. What's wrong with you? Get all defensive.
Yeah.
You're at a dinner, you know, like it may be at your Uncle Jimmy's, and one of your stupid cousins says something about people that are old. You go after them with a fork, and then you come to your senses. That was very specific, but I'm just saying, you know, he made me mad. Troy, don't talk like that. Just because you're in your 30s, don't do me like that. I'm just saying. Just because you can run around in your little shorts and UPS and think you're hot and all that stuff, don't do that. Anyways, I'm joking. That never happened. I didn't go at him with a fork. I just got aggravated.
Went at him with a butter knife.
It was a butter knife, and I lobbed butter at him, and I was like, "Shut your mouth! Shut your punk mouth!" Everybody's like, "Whoa, getting older, huh?" So now he's in his 30s. He's running around. He's talking about some old guy, and he said, "This guy's like, you know, some old guy." And then when he described this guy, I was like, "What year do you think this old guy was born?" He goes, "Probably like in the 70s or something." And I'm like, "You're just gonna cut my roll." That's it. You get mad, right? So anyway, Cliff says he's like, I'm 62 years old, right? He's like, I want to fish. I don't want to see crap. He's very just like, you know, I don't want to deal with this. There was crap going on. Like, you know, his wife was seeing things. Everybody was seeing stuff in that little area where they lived. His neighbors had Bigfoot, weird stuff. He had seen Bigfoot himself twice. He told me that. He goes, I had seen these things. But I'm not going to move out of the Ozarks just because they're there hanging out. You know, he goes, some Jehovah's Witnesses live next door to me. I didn't move away. You know, I stayed and I fought. I threw those watchtowers right back at him.
Every time they came over knocking at my door, I went and knocked at their door.
Well, he told me that when they knocked on the door, he'd open the door and he'd have the Bible out quoting it, and you will burn in hell. And then they were just like, okay, goodbye. And they would just walk away.
He started preaching on a megaphone outside their door all day long.
Actually, that was one of the things I thought about. I should have told him that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Cliff, if you're watching, you said you were going to catch the replay, but so you'll see this. Megaphone. Underwear. In your underwear, megaphone, really loud, scratching yourself. That will do it for most people. So what ends up happening, he says, we're out on the boat, and get this, folks, and you got to pay attention because this is really weird. He goes, I kept seeing this swirling fog. The wind would blow a little bit, and the fog would swirl up. And he's like, a couple of times, you know, his buddy Rudy was like, dude, it looks like there's something in the fog. And he was just like, come on, man, not you too. Now you're going to start seeing ghosts and things and like that. And he was like of the opinion that Bigfoot was a giant ape. And the ghosts, they wasn't real. Or all these people around, the natives and everybody, oh, there's ghosts everywhere. You know, he goes, this is him talking. And he was like, I don't believe it. I don't believe in these ghosts. Where are these boogeyman eyes? I don't see any of this. When he went to go and get Puffy, you know, the little dog, what's her name? Leslie's dog that was under the deck. He said, she bit me. He's like, and when I stood up for a split second, I thought I saw something white move really quickly behind me, which is the color of this creature that was showing up in, you know, it was a whitish gray creature. And he's like, I thought I saw something. He's like, and that was as close as I could get to a ghost. I thought, this isn't a ghost. What is this? But it looked like it was furry, like it was frizzed out hair. And so he was like, I don't believe in ghosts. He's like, I just think that, you know, sitting there in that boat, he's like, and now Rudy's talking about, the guy's been friends with him for 30, 40 years. He says, dude, this guy's ever talking about seeing some weird stuff in the fog. He's like, and then he's like, about 8 a.m, he's like, we see this ball of light kind of bob around. It's overcast big time. It's supposed to clear up by the afternoon. So it wasn't going to rain. But he's like, I see this ball of light. And he said it was probably the size of a softball. And he said that it was a green floating ball. And then it was spinning. And like I told you, Monica, what it was is, you know how somebody takes a Roman candle and when it burns out, you know how it burns out? You know? And it just becomes like a little piece of char or whatever. It was doing that. And then it kind of turned into the smoke. It kind of blended in with the fog. And they were like, where'd it go? And they felt this feeling of something kind of moving around them, around the boat. So they decided to get out of there. They scuttled their ship, their trip. And they said, let's get out of it. Let's go back to shore. Something weird like that. That's weird. He said in all the years he had lived in the Ozarks, he had never seen that, but just about everybody around him had seen it. And that was like the third or fourth time that Rudy had seen something like that. And he called it will-o'-wisps, like a lot of people do. When Rudy's a little older than him, he's like, and he said the old timers would talk about these things and be like scared of them because bad things happen when these things come around.
They knew.
The old timers knew. There was like, they would say, oh, you see one of those will-o'-wisps and then something weird happens. Well, because even if they didn't put two and two together that these were entities, they carried entities or whatever, something weird happens and it's not good. So you weren't supposed to try to communicate with them. You weren't supposed to do any of that. You were, I talked to an old timer the other day who's the grandfather of someone who gave us a story here in Cedar Park. And he says, I don't believe in ghost hunting or doing any of that. The Bible specifically says you're not supposed to communicate with these spirits, blah, blah, blah. He says, I think it's an abomination if people do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I told him flat out. And then he goes, oh, okay. He left me alone. He was like on me about it at first. I was just like, I listened for like 20 minutes in speech. And I said, I don't even do that. And he goes, oh, well, I guess you're good then.
Oh,
okay.
I just wasted my own time.
I canceled your trip to hell.
Just checking on.
You were all booked and ready to go for the flames of hell. And I'm, but I guess you're good. Kind of staring at me sideways. I'm like, okay.
Crossing your name off the list.
He's like, I'm going to go ahead and let God know that you are not attending RSVP canceled. And it's like, yeah, but he was an old guy, look kind of like a heavier set Sam Elliott, He's like, we're going to hell, boy. I'm just like, I'm not. Because not for that. Like go to hell for who knows what, but not that. And doing all that witchcraft stuff, whatever. I'm not doing that. So he told me, he says, look, man, he goes, at this point we go back to the shore. He goes, and I'm pulling the boat up, and that spot there, he goes, I would just leave my boat there sometimes. It was just a 2-man fishing boat, It was very private. There wasn't a whole lot of people in that area. And he goes, and it wasn't a very far walk back to my house, to my trailer, It's just him and his wife. He's a retiree, whatever. And he said, I look back on the lake and there's this wolf-like creature. Well, that's not what he said. Actually, he said it was a werewolf. But I said, werewolf? Like he goes, well, it wasn't a person changing into one, but that's what it looked like. He goes, and I said, well, was it wolf-like? And he said, yes. And so he proceeded to tell me that there was no legs. It was just like this waist with this spiraling, very perfectly spiraled. He said that, like corkscrew. Smoke going up into the waist, and it looked like it just kind of became like the midsection, but and then there was a very pronounced head to this thing that looked like smoke. And I said, did it chase you? And he goes, no, it didn't come out of the water, it was on top of the water, but it didn't chase us. He said, not then, not at that point. And I'm like, oh, this isn't be good. I mean, not that I'm happy for him being chased and terrified, but I'm just saying. I mean, at that point, I was like, "Oh crap!" So there's something else going on here, because I was like hoping, I hate to say that because then it's like you're rooting for people to have encounters, but you don't want that, But if they're going to tell you this, then you want there to be something. Yeah, you're like
weird juxtaposition.
Yeah, you've heard me talk to people. I'm not going, yes, this person was terrorized with this demon. He was on top of them.
But what's done is done. You can't unexperience it.
Yeah, it's not your fault. You're not like all happy, like, yeah, like you're on top of it now, like, this demon came and got him.
I don't know. Some people I'd be happy about that happening to.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy about it. So I was it's just sitting there and I was thinking, oh, so there's more to this. And I told him, I said, so what happened that day? He goes, nothing. We saw it and it kind of just, the wind blew and kind of messed it up. He's like, but I told Rudy, I was like, did you see that? Am I tripping? Am I like, and his friend was like, yes, absolutely. We saw that. That was there. That was not some figment of our imagination. That was really there. And Rudy was in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam vet. And he's a little bit older than him. And he's just like, dude, he goes, I've seen some stuff like that when I was in Vietnam. And he went back to Vietnam years later because he has a grandchild there. He has a daughter and a grandchild. So Rudy said that he connected with them, and now the grandchild lives here. And they were raised as Vietnamese, like you were.
I was going to say, sounds familiar.
Like yeah. And so he came, and the child is here. He's got a grandson. And this grandson was plagued by nightmares and dreams of something reptilian chasing him through the jungle because he saw something in South Vietnam in the jungle when he was a kid. He got separated from his people, and something accosted him and chased him into a cave where something else was waiting. And so these two entities tried to catch him, and he was hiding. And then that's all he remembers. He remembers people coming in and grabbing him in the middle of the night and taking him out. And for years, he had nightmares and dreams about it. So when he brought him over to the United States, the first thing he noticed when he was a little kid was that this kid could see things. He could hear things. And they were like, well, he's not schizophrenic. They had him tested on all this stuff. His wife was like, you got to make sure he's not, But his wife's sister has the eye. And she told him point blank, she's like, that child has the eye. He can see. He can see into the ether. She calls it that. I don't call it that. But that's what she calls it. And she says that he knows when stuff is around. So when he gets home, this is Rudy, not Clifford, the guy that told me the story, but he was telling me about Rudy. And Leslie and Patrick told me a little bit about him. Rudy's also part native. So he's native and white, right? And he's got people that have the eye on his side, on his mother's side, and his wife's sister has it, So they've all told him this child has it. He gets home and this child is sitting, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he's on the steps. He's got an American name too. It'll come to me. But he was sitting there on the steps, and he's like, People. He comes to him and he says, People. He goes, he's older now, but he still calls him People. He says, People, did you see something out there? And he was like, yes, I did. He goes, I sit on the deck with him. He goes, and it was scary. That's why we left. We quit fishing. And he says, this is what he told him. Oh, his name, Isaiah. His name is Isaiah. Sorry about that. I always do that when I remember things. And Isaiah tells him, he says, don't go back out onto the water for 3 days. And this is kind of funny, the way Clifford tells me. He kind of stops and pauses. And then I was like, and he goes, that was it. Rudy just said, okay. And then the kid walked inside. What do you want me to tell you? I'm just like, he calls him.
Well, at least he listened.
No, he didn't.
Oh.
Yeah. So Rudy, the next day, Rudy goes, hey, you want to try and go out there and catch some carp again? He's like, but Clifford doesn't know that he's been warned by this spooky child, the spooky little young teenager, now 13, whatever. He says, yeah, he goes, let's go out there. Let's try it again. He's like, and I said, Clifford, you just saw a smoke creature, well, something, a smoke wolf, werewolf, whatever. And he was like, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that if you saw it the day before? He goes, if you fall off a horse, don't you get right back up on it? I said, yeah, but this isn't a horse. This is a freaking werewolf. Why would you? Yeah, wait some time. Give it some time. So he says, the best thing you can do is just confront it, Wolf. He's like lecturing me. I'm like, yeah, I know. I get it. I was like, don't lecture me, but I get it. So he gets back on the horse, right? He goes back out there. He goes back out to the lake. Nothing happens until they are about 3 hours in, and they're kind of spooked, but the fish are biting, and he's doing it. He says, you know what? Maybe it was just a one-time thing. From this cove that's almost always dark no matter what, because the canopy is so thick. And if you've ever been to the Ozarks, and I have on a couple occasions, I've been out there and I've been to this particular lake. I have literally swam in that lake. I have literally been there. And he said that there was this cove. Now, I went there when I was a child, but I remember it, and it was very dark in these little coves. And he says, there's this it's like a swamp. Well, it is. It's a swamp. And he says, yeah, I hear this roar that I have never heard before that sounds kind of like ape-like mixed with a lion, and it ends in like a screeching howl. And he was just taken aback by this. He was shocked, and he said, there was something like in the pit of my stomach that I felt like I was going to toss up my bacon and egg sandwich that my wife had made me. He's like, and then Rudy's just like, yeah, let's get out of here. And he goes, Rudy's eyes were wide. He was not a scaredy guy.
Mm-hmm.
This dude's dad was grandfather on his mom's side was a tracker, native tracker. And he said, Rudy's just like, let's get out of here. And they just took the boat back. He says, as they're getting off of the boat, they can hear something sloshing through the water. There's a little spot right there where there's like it's like a few feet where you can walk across the water. And they hear something and they can't see it by looking around the corner. And so Rudy's like, let's go. And then whatever it was crashing through the brush coming towards them. But they didn't see it. When they get back to his house, because his house was closer than Rudy, Clifford's house was closer than Rudy's. And I didn't talk to Rudy. I talked to Clifford. I didn't talk to Rudy at all. And he said that Rudy was looking out the window, and he says, there it is. And when they look out the window, and Rudy's wife, or Clifford's wife, Eleanor, they were all three looking out the window. They see this ball of light bouncing over the lake in broad daylight. And then it just zips off real fast into the woods, and it's gone. Like it was, you know. And he's like, his wife says, what did you do? Did you bring something back? And she's like, she looked at Rudy, and Rudy was very troubled look on his face. And he says, you know, I should have told you this, you know, but Isaiah was like, don't go back out on the lake for 3 days. And Clifford was like, you know, I would normally not care, you know, but he's like, his son is very intuitive, you know, not it's my words, not his, but he said he was very psychic. And I said, well, intuitive, you know, like, and he was like, I don't know what Clifford goes, I don't know what that is, but I think it sounds good. I'm like, okay. So Clifford said, he by his own admission, he's like, I'm a simple guy, man. I hunt, I fish. We live mostly off the land. And that's his words. And he says, look, I look at Rudy, and he's just like rubbing his face. You know, he says, you know, I probably shouldn't have. I don't know why I did that. I should have told you. And he was like, you know, your son has been right about a lot of things. He predicted the death of one of their neighbors accurately. And it was a woman that used to babysit him that he was very close to, and he would cry. He was crying for like a week when he was little. And he told everybody that she was going to pass and how she was going to pass, and it happened. So everybody was kind of like, whoa. He walked into the house one time that Leslie and Patrick had the mirror in, and he says, you need to get rid of that mirror. And so Leslie's husband, Patrick, was like, why? And he says, there's a demon using it to come in and out of your house. And he walked out and wouldn't go back inside. He went and sat in the truck. So these things kind of make you think, okay, maybe they should listen to this kid because he obviously has his head in the game and he knows. Was this the reason why these reptoid creatures were trying to grab him? Or was it because of his encounter with these creatures that he was able to see? Now, there's where you come in, Monica. I want you to interject here, and I want you to tell me what this is. Tell me now.
3, 2, 1. Dang it, Monica.
3, 2, 1. Game on.
No, because we're talking about the Fae. We're talking about the Fae. So could it be that those creatures, could they be the Fae? Could that be what this is? Or could this be, because, you know, the Vietnamese have the legends too of the Fae and changelings and children that are back and made copies of. I made a very strange comment in the chat yesterday when you were on with Tex, and when somebody said something about the Fae, what do they do with the children? I said, they clone them. And everybody's like, oh, stupid. I don't know what you're talking about. Mostly my wife, Tony, and Anthony, but I'm sure in the chat thought it too, you know.
I made a comment saying that the changeling lore is that they replace your children.
Well, yeah, they keep your child and they put something in place of your child, right? So it's a changeling, which is a Fae child, and they can either look like your child, or like I told Josh last night, they can look like a turnip with hair. I mean, they're terrifying if they're in the true Fae form, right? So,
yeah.
They just give you an ugly baby.
Yeah. They take your adorable little cherub-cheeked child and give you like, is it like, have you seen the old
Eraserhead?
Have you seen the old practice of carving out turnips instead of pumpkins? Like that's what they used to do. Yep. Yeah, those things are terrifying. You imagine seeing that in your crib?
Well, we are convinced that Scorpio is one of those. I think that the real Gary was taken to the underworld and a turnip. It sounds funny when you say it in Zach Galifianakis' voice. I think that the Fae, what they did was they brought a retard, a turnip, and they put it in his crib, and now it's scary.
This was only a couple of years ago.
Oh, Scorpion's at that. He's there typing, I'm not going to moderate anymore, dude.
Last time I sleep in my crib.
Every time I sleep in my crib, you make fun of me. It's because I have a full diaper. Oh, that's skit just turned weird. Scorpion disgusting in that skit and in real life. But seriously, like I joked with Scorpion. I did say that. I said, dude, 'cause me and my brother were like, dude, what are you, a changeling or something? Where's you were taken at birth, given, you know? But I think that what it is, I do believe that this had something to do with this. Like, say he's mad. Yuck it up. We are yucking it up. You can't hear us. The laughter. The laughter is deafening.
Way ahead of you.
But I think that this thing, I think that something happened to Isaiah when he was a child. And I think that it could have been. So my question to you, Monica, is what came first? You know?
The creature or the ability?
Yeah, the Fae or the egg?
I think that, well, if we're talking about the child's or young man now, his ability to see. All right. It was you posed it earlier. Was it because he saw those things that he's suddenly able to witness other weird things, or was he born with that ability?
Yeah, that we don't know, because even
it's something we've always pondered about. I mean, my belief is that it's because of the fact that your mental state. I believe your mental state changes everything. You know, if you believe that you can do something, I believe that you will force it through that belief. And so, because of the fact that you have seen this now, you look at the world in a different way, and that allows you to see the hidden things that
rewires your brain, kind of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like there's no going back.
That's totally possible.
But I also believe that these spirits, or demonic entities or whatever, they can also sense that off of you. If you have the ability to see them, I think they know.
Oh, they definitely know if you can witness them. I mean, consider all the things that they're in tune with, that like the subtle body changes that like the person standing next to you might not notice, but your heart starts beating faster. Your breathing probably changes a little bit. You
start getting goosebumps.
Some like fear hormones. Like you can smell fear. Like these things can smell fear. I'm sure they know 100% if you can see them. But yeah, I mean, I think yes, you could witness something and it opens you up to having more experiences. But I also feel very strongly that some people are just born with the ability. Like you're gifted, really. I mean, you can look at it as a gift or a curse, I suppose, depending on how you view it. But I mean, you're born with the ability also, some people.
Oh, definitely.
Well, look at the changeling right there. He was born with ut, but the interaction opened. You're not making a case for yourself not being a changeling. I mean,
you're still learning our language.
It's hard.
It's only been 47 years ago. Give me a break. Cut me some slack.
Hey, Monica, I unfortunately have to go to work, so I want to say goodbye to everybody on BRT. I wanted to be here for at least an hour, but it's time for me to go, so peace out, guys.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Monica.
Well, before you go, I wanted to say, because there's a Vietnamese legend that it's called, and I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly, but it's called Sir Dan Trao. Sure, Don Trao. Now
there's multiple accents, so it's going to be hard for me to know what that is.
But it's basically like the child it's the same version. It's the same story. There's Sure Don Trao, if you look it up, and I don't pronounce things correctly sometimes. People are like, you didn't pronounce that correctly. Do you want to hear a story, an encounter, or do you want to hear me give you a language lesson, dude? Give me a break. So it refers to a child as basically taken as it's a changeling is what it is, and it is swapped out, and it's fairies or other supernatural beings.
I've heard that if you go into the jungle and then or someone goes into the jungle and you see them come back, it might not be them.
Might not be them. That's what
I know. That's what my mom told me.
See, and that's what the South Vietnamese had told Rudy. And now Rudy's also half native, so I mean, he's got that in him too. But he's like, dude, some of those people there, they could see you. There was a Vietnamese woman in a village in South Vietnam that told him that he had a spirit that looked like an eagle that would follow him around. And some of the guys in his platoon would look up and see an eagle.
Yes.
So I mean, it is a weird. Anyway, you can take off now. You may go. I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
but
Dismissed.
drive safe, and you're driving my truck because
Don't scratch his truck.
don't mess up my truck, boy. I didn't buy you from Vietnam for you messing up my truck, boy.
sorry, it's harder to drive than a cardboard box.
When Tony was little, we used to go.
It's
into
not
this,
a rickshaw.
We used to go into this coffee shop where these people were. Let's just say they were very liberal, and it was me and Anthony, and these kids, and him and his sister Leah, and they're darker skinned, and I'd be like, don't be ordering up all the menu. You don't cost me a pretty penny. And we'd always play this little game, and Leah would just go all in on it.
So good.
She would sell it like they were in slavery.
You got her in trouble with Chad because she did it to him.
So we go into the coffee shop there, and I was being like, whatever, and it was Zane, and these kids, Zane, he's my nephew, but he's part black. He's got, and Anthony, he's Hispanic, but he's darker skin, and then you got two Vietnamese kids, and I'm this white guy, and I'm this big white guy, and I'm like, don't be touching nothing, and I'm talking like, like a backwoods hillbilly,
like Boss Hog or something.
So they called the popos on us.
Oh no!
So I'm sitting there, and here comes this police officer. He's looking around. He's holding his gun belt. This is Williamson County, and he's just like, he walks up and he goes, "I need to talk to you." And then there's these like other lady with a clipboard, and I'm like, "What is this?" So they separated everybody, and they're like, "Is he abusing you?" And Leah, his little sister, was like, "No, that's my Uncle Wolf." She's like, "I love my Uncle Wolf," and she was just like she didn't want to participate. She was like, "We were playing, we were joking," and. Tony, I look over at Tony, he's laughing. And they're like, "Sir, you need to focus up." And I'm like, if he's old enough to be called sir, why are you asking him if he's abused? This is so we told him we were joking, and then the lady was just being overzealous, and this police officer was just like, okay. So he was like real cool about it. He's like, but the social services lady, she was real like, I'm gonna follow up, I'm gonna check out this, so she goes and talks to his mother and his dad, they're my old friends, and they were just like, his mother was just like, this is ridiculous. Like he's always, they're always goofing around. They make videos and stuff. We used to make videos all the time. We're going out just being stupid, doing stupid things, yelling and screaming at people in public.
Remember the jousting video we made in Walmart? Oh, that was classic.
We should do that again.
We still had that.
You should do that again.
We should do that kind of stuff, man. It was funny. Before Leah, his sister, went into the Air Force, she just got out of boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I was like, we should dig out some of those old videos of us. We were playing with action figures and doing all kinds of stuff. But yeah. Anyway, we had a lot of fun, but the police came that day. So we kind of quit doing that. We're like, okay, we won't do that anymore. We won't scare people.
The police were following up. What if it really was some abuse situation?
Yeah, what if it was like somebody that was, but unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have happened if I looked different. They wouldn't have messed with me. That lady was just like, I'm going to get you. I got purple hair. I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
She's like that, So nothing happened. But the police were just like, just be careful. The cop took me outside and was like, be careful because some of these people, they're just going to mess with you. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm messing with them too. So he was cool. But the social services lady that looked like a frog, she wasn't. She was convinced.
They're not usually cool.
She wasn't cool at all. And she was just like, I'm going to keep watching you. Ooh, and I'm like,
watching you.
Good.
What is it? What is Monsters Inc.? What is the green guy's last name? I'm watching you. Kolzowski, whatever the guy's name is. I can't remember.
I know what you're talking about. I got blondes and booze in the house. What's up, blondes and booze? What are y'all doing? How you ladies? So here's what happened with this story. This started something because this guy, he was taking a shower, referring to what's his face? Clifford. He's taking a shower. He gets out of the shower. He's like, and I see something in my backyard. He's like, and I can see it moving around. He goes, the blinds were open. He goes, my wife always opens the blinds. And it's okay. We see, you can see, 30 yards away is the lake or the slope to go down to the lake. And she's like, nobody's going to look in. He goes, and then one year during spring break, a bunch of young women came out and he's like, they were admiring my dad bod. He goes, I didn't know they were. I was just, he goes, I listened to little Tom Petty dance around, I didn't know that they were watching. And he did say that. He goes, I'm joking. He was kidding with me. But it was funny when he said that. He said, but there were some young ladies out on a boat and they were like, woo, you know. He's like, I'm sure they didn't find me attractive. They just see this old man that's running around putting on his underwear from the shower. You know, and I told my wife, I was like, why do you have the blinds open? He's like, oh, Cliff, that's 1 in a million that somebody's going to look in. He goes, but it happened, you know. But he said, you know, it wasn't a comfortable thing. But he goes, and so I get out and I'm like, here it is. The blinds are open, you know. He goes, and it was late spring, you know, and it was kind of cool. There was a good breeze going. He's like, and she had the window open a little bit. He goes, and I hear crunch, crunch, crunch. And I look out the window. And he says, I see this black, shadowy looking thing. We have this tree. He's like, and it's the only tree. It's right there. And it's like, it comes out from behind that tree. He goes, and it's got one hand like on the tree like this. And he's like, you know, and it's his left hand. He goes, and I could see it staring at me. He's like, and there were these balls of light, self-illuminated. And he goes, it was dusk. And they were yellow. Man. He's like, and then it narrowed its eyes. And I thought, those are eyes. That thing just squinted its eyes. Very human-like, but it had a snout, very pronounced. He's like, I could see it. He was dusk, but I could see it in the twilight. He goes, and I was looking at it, and I was like, that looks like a damn werewolf. And he goes, I couldn't move. He goes, and my grandson comes in there, and he's like, calls him Papa. And he's like, Papa, what are you doing? And he says, Colby, he's like, do me a favor and get Memo. Get Mama, go get her. So he runs to go get Mama. Mama comes in there, and he says, grab my gun. I'm not moving. And he goes, don't come in the room. Don't come in the room. He tells her, just grab my gun. When he said that, this thing, its ears perked up, and it kind of did this, like its eyes opened up, and like its ears. He said, I swear to you, he called me Mr. Wolf. Some people call me different things. He says, Mr. Wolf, I swear to you, this thing, its ears perked up and its eyes. He's like, kind of like it was surprised, like, oh, like you think you can do something to me. He said he honestly felt in the pit of his stomach that this was a challenge to this creature. So the creature kind of got down and squatted down like in a runner stance, like it was going to burst through our trailer. He goes, we live in a double wide trailer. He's like, that's not going to offer much protection from this thing. This thing was big. I said, how big? He said, probably about 7 foot. I said, the one that I saw was about 7.5. He said, maybe, but I think that was about 7 foot. He goes, but it was huge. The upper body was huge and the thighs were massive. So it just takes off. And he says, dude, this was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. Not only the creature itself, because I'd seen Bigfoot a couple times, what they call Bigfoot around here is what he said. He said, but this thing, when it got to the water, it was like it was running on the water. He goes, I'm not even joking. He goes, and I was trying to picture this because I've never had anybody tell me that before. We talked, Anthony, we couldn't find any reports of anybody ever saying one of these things could run on the water.
That was the first time.
Yeah, I thought I'd heard it all when it came to Dogman, Bigfoot, all this stuff. Tons and tons and tons of reports and getting lots and lots of stories from people, but nothing that like a Dogman or a Bigfoot ever walking on water or running on the water, which would speak to it being some kind of like supernatural being. And I believe that this thing came to him in that shadow form. And I think that this thing was this is what I told him. And we talked and we talked and we talked. And I said, this is what I think, Cliff, putting it all together. And this is what I believe. I think that thing that he saw, that wasn't the last time he would see it either. There's more. But I think it was attracted to the energy that was being, from that mirror and from that Bigfoot creature that was roaming around before the mirror, and I think it acted as a conduit because they're closest neighbors. Of course, Rudy's on one side and then the other side is Leslie and Patrick. And this was at the same time that the mirror thing was going on. Now, here's another thing. His wife, Eleanor, says that she believes that this thing was some sort of like fairy because of the ball of light. She believes that, which is why I bumped it up to tonight and told you to come on. So What do you think? This thing ran onto the water and off into the woods, and so it just ran so fast that it was like it went over the water.
It sounds. I mean, it could be fae. I mean, it could be a spirit, but you know, who's to say? I mean, I'm so torn with what these things are because the rational side of my head wants to be like flesh and blood, but then all these crazy experiences that people have with these creatures and with Bigfoot too, to be fair. And who's to say that some of them aren't from the fae realm, right? They're not some sort of fae, and fae have the ability to glamour and they'll let you see what they want you to see. All right, so why couldn't it have been fae? If she's feeling like it was fae, I say why not?
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any fae creature specifically that I've personally read about that is, werewolf shaped. But, fae legends are very predominant in Ireland, as we know, and there are werewolf stories out of Ireland. I mean, St. Patrick encountered werewolves in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So, sure. I mean, mermaids are fae. Why can't werewolves be a type of
there you go. See, now I want to know. Like the sylph, is that what you're referring to? Like the
selkies?
Yeah.
Selkies, yeah, selkies are fae, but so are like actual mermaids.
Well, the sylph is what I'm referring to.
Oh, sylph.
So, sylph, selkie, whatever, two different things. But do you believe that these are could these, and Anthony, we talked about this last night, could these all be a type of fae that we're dealing with? Balls of light coming out of the woods.
Right.
You were talking about it last night. Now, what is your opinion? Now, I'm not saying I don't have to agree, and nobody in the audience has to agree, but what is your opinion on this? You're the fae expert. Tell us.
Yeah, I'm the fae expert here. You should listen.
You're pretty well versed in this. So, because we had a story of some kind of, you remember that thing that was like a little elf-like creature, but then they saw this werewolf and it looked like it came out of like this, like it melted or something. You remember that? It was weird. It was a weird story.
It was bizarre.
And they found like this, almost like it had come out of like wax or something. It was bizarre.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it was an elf-like creature. And I don't like to say elf because that sounds goofy. It sounds like something that works in a shop in the North Pole. What I'm talking about is like something that it was like a little demonic entity, like a little, in Spanish we would call it a duende.
Mm-hmm.
A
like little goblin.
Yeah, like a little goblin, little monito, but it was like a little, dude. And it turned into a werewolf. I mean, they didn't see it turn into a werewolf, but I think that's what was happening. I think this thing could do that.
Well, so fae can glamour, right? People think of fae glamour in they look beautiful, right? And they do glamour to appear more beautiful than they are a lot of the times, but they can glamour to look like whatever they want to look like. If they want to appear as something that's going to frighten you to get away from them, why not? I believe that they can read minds. Some of them can read minds. And if that's what's in your head and they know that's what scares you, that's what they would turn into. Why not do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that they could absolutely be fae, just like I think that some Bigfoot are probably fae. I do, because you hear about people talking, well, they came in and out of a portal, or they came in and out of a tree, which sounds absolutely crazy sometimes, but I didn't have that experience. If somebody says they saw it come out of a portal or they saw it walk into a tree, that sounds fae-ish to me. That doesn't sound like something that a flesh and blood creature is going to be doing. That sounds very fae-ish.
Yeah. Well, here's somebody that says Alp of the Norse are said to be able to. Do you believe that?
Werewolf.
What do you think? You want to read it, Anthony?
Alp of the Norse are said to be able are known to shapeshift in many different ways, especially like a werewolf.
Sure.
Monica's like, okay.
I mean, it's phrased kind of weird. I think that there's like a typo, but I think I think fae are just like I think those are natural shapeshifters, like because think about it. If the phenomena of a changeling is so common, then they can take the shape of a human. So I mean, shapeshifting is, I think, is something that is just comes naturally to these things. Like it's an indelible part of who they are, of the nature of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Fae are just because that I do believe that there are layered dimensions, right? Universes, whatever you want to call it. I think that they're layered on us. And when we see things come in and out, they're coming from one to the other. Some things have, and I think Fae are one of the things that have the ability to come in and out of our plane of existence. And the physics that bind us in this realm maybe don't work the same for them because they come from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why when you hear the stories of people being taken to Fae, right, the Fae realm, that time is distorted. Time is so different in that realm as opposed to ours. So that I don't think that they're constant inhabitants of this. Like you're not going to, go cut down a forest and find 10 elves or whatever hiding in there. They're able to pop in and out of their dimension or whatever you want to call it into ours.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have that ability, why can't? I mean, they've been known to use glamour. Like I said, fairies can use glamour. They can mimic. They can do a lot of things.
What about this Brett Lawfer? He's been a paratrooper for a very long time. And Brett says, I almost believe that there is one force that manifests itself to us in different forms, depending on our personal paradigms. Tex, he's like a brother to me, and he's to all of us. He's like big brother to all of us. And when he talked to me and one-on-one about his encounter with that pale crawler.
Pale crawler.
He told me, he says, man, this thing wasn't a completely flesh and blood thing. He goes, did it grab me? I didn't see it until later. It was
right.
People were talking about having seen this thing. So you can see these things and then you can feel them. And there was a story. This one scared the crap out of me, dude. I mean, it wasn't very long, but the woman, while I was on the phone with her, something really weird happened. This was back in last August. I remember this. I remember it was last August. And there was something while we were on the phone, there was this static. And I remember she telling me she was in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, close to Nashville, Tennessee. She lived right on the edge. And she said that there was something that was stalking her and it was going around her property that looked like one of these crawlers. And she had talked to another podcaster, YouTuber. And this person, not one of my favorite people, but they told her some bullcrap. It's a flesh and blood thing. And she's like, well, how do I tell it to stop? And he's like, well, you go tell it yourself because I'm not going to. She's like, I'm not telling you to. I'm asking you for help. You can help her, Of course, he can't help her because he's full of crap.
Sure.
And he's not around. He doesn't do this anymore, as of what I've heard, but he was not very helpful. But he was recommended to her, and I said, look, I'm not going to bullshit you. I can't do a whole lot, but I can pray with you. I can do that. I can do, whatever. Excuse my language, but I didn't say that to her. I didn't say, but that's what I was getting at. I said, I'm not going to blow smoke here. I'm going to tell you that this thing, she says that this guy told her it can't get into your house and to tell it not to come around the property. Okay, yeah, that's going to happen. Why would you go outside and talk to it? Then, to add insult to injury, he tells her that it's something that she did that caused it. We don't even know that because the area that she moved to had that thing there for a long time, going back to like the 80s. And this thing, she said that she didn't think it could get into her house. I said, let me tell you something. That's a spirit. It can manifest as physical, but the thing that people always fail to grasp, and I told Cliff this, and I said, tell your friend Rudy this too. Same thing I told Leslie and Patrick. You're dealing with the supernatural. You're dealing with a spirit. Someone asked me, and this was at the gym. They asked me a few days ago, they were like, your show is called Paranormal Roundtable, but it's heavily cryptid. And I like that. She was telling me, I like that about your show. It was these three people that I was talking to. And there were two ladies and a man. And the man says, he goes, yeah, I like cryptids, but I just don't understand them. And I said, it's pretty simple. They're spirits. That's why it's called Paranormal Roundtable. He's like, all of them? I said, all of them. He goes, what? How so? Like he was kind of, like, how so? Like, I don't believe you, And I said, because aren't you a spirit? He goes, maybe. I said, no, you are. Mm-hmm. So am I. So is everyone in this gym. He said, well, if we're all spirits, why are we lifting weights? I said, because this is the vessel inside of your body There's a lot of working and functioning parts. The most important part is the spirit. It is literally the electricity, the energy that drives us, and it creates the connection between the mind and the body. If you took the alternator out of the car, it ceases to work, right? The battery is the heart that pumps the electricity. And I told him, I said, we are all spirits and we're having a physical experience, me lifting these weights while being distracted by you and your company. Right? Very crass and rude. I was just like that to them. I was not. I wasn't. But I told them, I said, you're talking to me right now. You're asking questions, and I'm lifting weights, and I'm answering you. This is a spirit, mind, body function. Everybody thinks it's all one or the other. It's not. You think that the white blood cell is not connected to the red blood cell because you can't live without one or the other. That's the thing people don't grasp. And I tell them these things are a spiritual thing. I just want to know what kind, because there are very specific rules when it comes to the Fae. They snatch people up and they take them to their courts. And you know what the courts are called, Monica?
The Celian and the Unseelie courts, right?
Which means clean and unclean.
That's right.
What it means. And if you're taken to the Unseelie court, they have been known to pass judgment on people. And as a society, they have their own rules and stuff that they follow. And they're very specific. Now, to call them jinn is just to say that a catch-all for all of these creatures. But you have different types of jinn. You have the Ifrit.
Yep.
Yeah, you have all these different kinds.
The Ifrit is so fascinating to me.
They are very weird. It's a very weird subset. And when I talked to a Jordanian police officer, and I had the pleasure, he was actually working security for a fire watch for us because we didn't have enough people, whatever. So we subbed it out like we do sometimes. And he was a very interesting guy. You remember the Jordanian police officer? He used to work, of all places, at Petra. And I told Anthony, I said, you tell me though it's a coincidence. We had just talked about Petra a couple months before when we met this guy. And I talked to this man and he says, I did not believe in the jinn. I thought of this fairy tales, a joke. My mother, father, don't go into the desert, the fairy, whatever, the jinn. He goes, it's like fairies. I don't believe. I said, well, fairies are real. He goes, no, I believe. He goes, we go out there to pick up some people from Petra because they went out there and they got lost. He goes, and one guy, he couldn't talk. He was catatonic. I talked to this man later. I got in touch with him and I said, tell me everything you know about Petra. He says, it's a forbidden place. He goes, I would never go there, for it wasn't my job getting paid. Now, Jordan is in a free society. You get a job and you work for the king, King Hussein, right, at that time. And you have to sign an oath. So you're working as a police officer and they tell you, go to Petra. And you say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to lose my job. Something else might happen to you.
Yeah.
So you go and you're going to go to Petra. You'll take your chances with the jinn. They might or might not let you live. These people are not going to let you live because you're basically derelict of duty. And there was a very uneasiness at that time because there were uprisings and the Bedouins were restless and all kinds of crap was happening. All this stuff was happening with Israel and stuff. So he was like, dude, they told me to go. I went. I retrieved these people. One of them was a Turkish student that was catatonic. 3 weeks in the loony bin is what this is his words, not mine. And he said that this person began to talk. These creatures came out of them from the darkness that looked like yellow balls of light. And they thought, oh, how pretty, until they became demons that bit them all over their hands and their feet as they were kicking at them, trying to get them off of them. They looked like little evil elves. But those aren't even the worst things that people have claimed to see. They've claimed to have been cloaked in darkness by something that comes over them that looks like a grim reaper. And then they go unconscious and then they go insane. So you're dealing with a subset of creatures, entities, who knows what they are, but they are akin to the Fae. That's their cousins. Yeah. The only difference is and I will say this very specifically, they have different regions that they hail from. And I will tell you this too, from my studies, I do believe that they are territorial, kind of like bacteria. When I was a child, I had a chemistry set, and I had a microscope, and I was very into this, and I would take droplets of water and things like that, and I would look at it. My dad, being an electrical engineer, he was very cerebral, and he would say, "Son, what do you see?" And I said, "It looks like a war down there." And he goes, "That's what it is." He told me this when I was a child. He said, "Bacteria don't like to share space with each other. Bacteria will eat one another." He's like, "That's the very basis of life. It's very basic. This is mine. You don't belong. Push you out." That is what these things do. I do believe this. I don't know if you believe it, Anthony. I don't know if you believe it, Monica, or the people at home. Tell me what you think. But I think this is what you're dealing with.
I believe it.
I don't think they have permission just to roam in each other's territory.
There's consequences.
There's consequences. But then again, people can trespass against these beings too. The Fae are very, very territorial.
Yes.
They don't like it when you step on their mounds. They don't like it when you interfere with their work.
Mm-mm.
They want to be left alone. And when you don't abide by their rules, which you may be ignorant of. There is a story of a man from England that was taken by the Fae. And I don't remember his name, but I remember it was like back in the 1600s, and his name was like Jacob something or another. And they took him in the middle of the night and they dumped him into the Sealy Court, the Unsealy Court.
Ooh.
Yeah. And they told him that he had trespassed. And he's like, "I didn't know this rule law," because he had built a house, right? And I remember reading this. It was in one of these books. Like, I think it was like Edwards, one of his books, and he said something like, "Well, I didn't know that I was," and they were like, "Ignorance is no excuse. We are all spirits. Don't you know the rules? Just because you're hanging out in a body doesn't mean you don't follow the rules." And they punished this guy. When he returned, because when he went home, he was like, his wife was old.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly this guy had left. And this is supposedly a true documented case. I can't remember the guy's name, but you can probably look it up. And he literally had been gone for like 20 years. Now, she didn't remarry. She was a widow, and she just, but he was young. So his consequences were that he had to watch everybody he loved, be old, and he displaced.
Like a faith thing. Yeah.
Very brutal the way they
Cruel
are.
punishment.
Cruel as hell.
Very cruel. Yes. And very rigid. They don't give there's no flexibility.
No.
When you break the rules. And they're easily offended. Even Sealy courts are easily offended. They're always looking for loopholes to, like, I gotcha. They're looking for the gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I don't have welcome mats at my house. I don't have a welcome sign on my door. I don't have anything you can even see through the windows that says "welcome friends" or "welcome to my home" or anything like that.
That's a loophole for them.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I talked to someone recently, and she was having problems with what I believe may or may not have been the Fae. I don't indict anything or anyone without thinking, I don't know if this is what it is, but I could say maybe. But I have seen the Fae at least 4 times. I have seen three times where it was like very close together, 2 at the same place. I've talked about it on the show, and then one at my Aunt Linda's. That was back in what year did you guys go to the UT game and you got so drunk that you couldn't even walk?
Oh, that was 2016. Yeah.
I remember because I had to go to Aunt Linda's and drop off all of her psychology books.
Yeah.
Because she was selling them or something. And she's like, "Do you got my books?" It was like 20 of them. And me and Aunt Linda used to like do this book club thing. Like we would literally, me and her and my other aunt, we would like read books and then talk about them. Sociopath Next Door or Psychopath Next Door, whatever, all those different types of books. She had a bunch. She's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, very intelligent woman. And she believes in the spirit world. And so my cousin had told me that he had seen a fairy in the backyard. I saw it in the front yard. And I said, dude, I called him too, Jimmy. I called my cousin Jimmy, and I told him, I said, I saw it. It was crazy. And it looked just like the ones I saw when I was in the reformatory in San Marcos. I got sent to the reformatory as a reward for being such a good kid. They were like, "Hey, you're always doing so many good things and helpful things for the community. We want to reward you with the vacation for about 3 months in a reformatory."
Like Disneyland, but better.
It was better. Let me tell you. The fights. Just glorious. It was a wonderful thing. Being told when to poop, when to pee, when to stand, where to do everything. I loved it. amazing.
It's like an amusement park.
Who wouldn't? Yeah.
It was better. It was safer than Disney, though. I got to say that. But getting choked out by the staff by accident. Literally, I was standing there and there was a fight going on. This big guy just comes up and chokes me, and I'm like, I'm not even involved. And then he got mad because I wouldn't go unconscious, so they gave me Thorazine. That guy lost his job though because there was one lady there named Angela. She was a black lady that worked there, and she actually cared about us. And she was like, she looked at the cameras and was like, "That is bullcrap. He wasn't doing anything. And you just and don't know why. He was a sub, so he didn't even know me. There was no reason for him to have a problem with me.
Just had an outlet for his
Yeah.
aggression.
I
You were
didn't.
there.
Yeah.
I wasn't mouthy to him. I had never seen him in my life till that day, and he just grabbed me and choked me, and he started punching me in my ribs because he said I was resisting. I didn't even know what the heck was going on. There were two kids fighting, and I'm just standing there. I'm not even doing anything. It had nothing to do with me. I got out of the way, and he grabbed me anyway. Just, you know. So long story short, I was there, and I saw this creature about that big, probably. My roommate, they give you a roommate. I guess you want to call it that. You know, you're in a cement walled place, roommate, whatever.
Cellmate.
They make it sound better. Yeah, cellmate, basically.
Mhm.
And he would get up in the middle of the night and urinate into the AC. That was
Oh,
wonderful.
awesome.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm sleepwalking. You just told me you were sleepwalking, dude.
Oh,
You know.
man.
I have an excuse.
So they put me with this guy because he was a big guy and everybody was scared of him, and he would do things like that. And they were hoping, I guess, that I would straighten him out or something. And I'm like, that's not my job, because as soon as I beat him up, y'all going to be on me. And I'll go to the QR for 3 days. I'm not doing that. So I said, hey, I started banging on the door. This guy's peeing over here in the corner. Then he runs and jumps in his bed. I was like, what are you doing? He said, I'm sleepwalking. I'm like,
sleep running. Yeah.
sleep urinating, sleep, you know, whatever. But he did tell me something. He would stand there at night by the window all the time, which I thought was interesting. And I would be like, what is this guy? As long as you don't touch me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I went to sleep. But I've always only slept like 5 hours, maybe, 6 at the most. And I woke up and I always get up about 5 a.m. and he'd be sitting there going like, gawking at the window. He was goofy, guy from Chicago. And I was like, Matt, what are you doing? He goes, they're so fascinating, man. And I'm just like, oh God, whatever. I ignored it. Then one night we were coming back from chow and it was lights out early because we were on restriction. And it wasn't me and there were 4 of us who were not on restriction. Everybody else was. But unfortunately, we all had roommates who were on restriction. So we had to be on restriction kind of with them. So, but I could go to eat in the cafeteria and I could go to the gym. Otherwise, I was pretty much on lockdown. So I come in after, whatever, goofy guy standing there looking out the window. Like for the last 2 weeks, he's been my roommate. So I'm just like, whatever, dude. And so the light was off. And then as it got dark, it was summertime and it got dark about 9. The lights were supposed to be out by 7. That's crazy, right? Punishment, right? So then I'm sitting there and I look over and we didn't have curtains or anything on our windows,
Mm-hmm.
And it was, looking back on it, it was very beautiful, but it was like this knoll that we were on and it was called Spring Hill. And there was Spring Hill East and Spring Hill West. And I remember I was on Spring Hill East. And I remember walking over to them like, what are you looking at, you goofy mother effer? I just was like, whatever. And he was just like, he goes, I'm watching the fairies. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I went and I laid back down and then I heard boom, 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 like something bumping the glass. And I'm laying there and I'm like, like this, kind of laying there. You're just like looking up at the ceiling, wishing you weren't there. And I look over at the window and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I get up and I walk over there and there is this bug-like creature about that big. It had the body of a small person. And it was moving around real fast. And it just for a second, like I caught like a good glimpse of it, eye contact, everything. This is the story in more detail than I've told on the show. But I saw it and I made eye contact with it. And I just was like horrified. It looked like an evil, mean little creature. And I backed up and I was like, dude, what the heck is that? And he goes, my friend. And I ran to the door and I was like, dude. And there was this guy, Jermaine, that worked there. He's pretty cool. I got along with him. And I'm like, Jermaine. And he comes up, he's like, what's up, brother? I said, man, dude, this guy, I got out of there. Like I got out of there real quick. I fell out of there. I was like, dude, and I grabbed my mattress. And like I said, I knew the guys that ran it. I usually didn't get in trouble. I didn't have a lot of problems. And he goes, what do you want to do? I said, let me sleep in the quiet room, dude. I don't want to be around this guy. And there's something weird at the window. I don't know what that is. You know, I was 16 years old. I had seen the Dogman type creature already, had not seen the black dogs yet. That was coming. And I just saw that. And I said, I just saw something. Well, the next morning I get up. Of course, I wake up about 5 a.m. Jermaine's not off until 7. And we start talking. And he goes, you okay, man? I'm like, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. And he said that, hold on one second. Don't go anywhere, folks. Just one second. Okay, so anyways, he starts talking to me. And he goes, you know, he's like, he went to school there in San Marcos at the college. You know, he goes, look, man, he goes, you know, and he actually played ball there. And he says, look, man, he goes, I'm gonna tell you right now. He's like, he goes, last year, he goes, I broke my leg and I lost my scholarship, whatever. And he goes, so I'm trying to work my way through school. He goes, this is a job to me. He goes, I like guys like you because you don't cause problems. He's like, guys like that are effed up. He's like, but those things that you just saw, that's not him. He's like, maybe it's going to the window because of him, but they're out there in these woods. I've seen them. He used to work at Ocarina Springs. And if you look that place up, it was supposedly haunted. Yeah. And he says, dude, I used to work there. And at night, he goes, I saw a person get bit by one of these things. We thought that there was like a glowing grasshopper. That's what we called it until I got a good look at one. He's like, they look like little people. I said, dude. I was like, so you've seen it? He goes, yeah. He goes, I've seen it. I've seen it. He goes, me and my girlfriend both worked there. He's a black dude. And him and his girlfriend both were black people. And they worked there. And he says, dude, and of course his granny, you know, where he was from in East Texas, said that they were like little small haints, you know, like that's a catch-all that they like to say is haint, you know.
Yeah.
He said, dude, my granny, before she died of the sugar, that's diabetes, you know, he says, dude, she used to tell me about the haints. He said, they can be small or they can be big. Mm-hmm. And Jermaine was one of the first people that ever told me that he had seen a little one and a big one. And I said, what did the big ones look like? And he said, like a hairy creature. Like a big hairy creature. And I was thinking Bigfoot, but I didn't say it, you know. And then of course, while we're having this conversation, one of these kids is peeing in the hallway or doing something. I don't remember what it was, doing something stupid. And he's like, oh crap. And he had to go run over there and deal with it. And I was just sitting there going like, wow. Interesting. Somebody just says, my mom was Cajun. There was a guy that worked there that was Cajun too. And I talked to him. And then there was this other guy that was there, and his name was not Chad, Craig, and he went to school there at the college. And so on Fridays, get this, Monica, on Fridays and Saturdays, if you were good, you could order pizza. Now, what this place was kind of like a mixture between a treatment center and a juvie.
Okay.
Like, I got court ordered there. Some people don't. They get put there by their parents. But if you have good insurance, they'll find a reason to keep you there. Yeah. So I got court ordered there and I was only supposed to be there for 6 weeks, and I ended up for 3 months. So, because my dad's insurance, he had Cobra at that time, which was good. And so they were like, oh yeah, you need to stay here. And I'm like, for what? I did nothing. Even the staff was like, why are you here? I mean, you're not like these other people. I wasn't. I just got in trouble because I was always getting into fights and, you know, I had problems. And, you know, my home life was crap. So I got along with the staff, and years later, as I was running a nightclub, some of those people that used to work there would come into my club, and I made friends with them. This one black dude I used to talk to all the time. And I used to, and Jermaine, there was a guy named Shelby, Jermaine, Craig, can't remember the Cajun guy's name. I think his name was Mark. He was a big heavyset guy. He was a cool dude, man. And they all worked there, and we would talk about this weird stuff because it was around us. Mm-hmm. Into those woods where we were, at one time we were playing kickball, and a bunch of kids were out in the outfield, and they all came running into the infield because they thought that they had seen something out there. And I didn't see it. I was playing like second base or something. And I was like, why are they running back into the, you know? So this one kid, he was a Puerto Rican kid from New York. He hadn't been in the woods. He was a New York City kid. And he was like, dude, something was shaking the trees, but we couldn't see anything. So there was something there in those woods. There was definitely something there. And so on Fridays, like I said, we could order pizza. So I ordered pizza, and I was walking with Craig, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And Craig was like, did you just see that? And I was looking right at it. And the other guy was like, no, what was it? And he goes, it looked like a ball of light, but it looked like it had appendages. And it zipped around the lamppost 3 times and then shot off into the sky. And I said, dude, I looked right at it. So whenever he said that, I told him, I said, yeah, I know what that is. And he goes, what is that? I said, it's a fairy or a fae, whatever. Because I heard the word fae before. My aunt used to tell me about that. Because they had them down in Mexico where she used to go. And she said that they were down there. There were these fae, and they lived in the woods, and they would come out, and they would steal things, and if you try to stop them, they would kill you.
Yeah, they're vicious.
They're vicious. She said that that people would stop breathing in the middle of the night and all this other stuff. And so I was like, oh, that's creepy. And so I told that Craig dude, I said, look, man, I said, I've seen this before. And I told him about what happened with Matt and whatever. And he goes, oh, that kid's weird. I'm like, yeah, he's a weirdo. But he's talking to him and stuff. I said, and they come to our window at night. And so I switched rooms. Good. It took me a couple of days. I petitioned, and you have to write a request and all this crap. And then the counselor will come and be like, why do you think you should have a different roommate? And I'm like, well, one thing, he's always doing stuff that I don't like. I'm not even going to get into it here on the show. And then he's peeing in the AC thing. She's like, oh, okay. Oh, well, okay. So they took another kid that did that, and because there was more than one kid doing it, because it was just bizarre. Yeah.
Of peeing in the vents.
Yeah, there was another kid that did it. This other kid named Jeremiah was doing it too. Yeah, like John Maddox, rehab prison, pretty much. Except I wasn't there for rehab. I was just there because like I said, I'd been court ordered there, because they were like, well, you're not like, terrible, but you're not good. So we're going to put you here in this limbo. That's what they did. And they don't do it anymore like that, because they've separated the private from the public, whatever that is. So I ended up having to be there for like 3 months, and I didn't see anything else. That was it. I didn't have anything else. But there was a kid on my wing that supposedly got possessed.
Sure. I believe
and that. I heard it. I heard the noise and everything, and it sounds horrific. It sounds like something like this kid couldn't make that noise. And there was all these staff members, man, and they were all jumping on top of this kid trying to get him under control. And I was like, what the heck? And one of the kids said something like, well, I think he's possessed again. And I was like, again? Because some of these kids had been there for like a year, 2 years. They've been there forever.
Yeah.
They were there for like a long time. One kid had been there for 2 years.
Oh.
And I saw that his parents come, and they were just like these real, for lack of a better term, like waspy, like
really,
jet setter type people. They were like, we just got back from Europe, son. Just hang in there. Maybe we'll let you come home. That was literally, this kid seemed like he didn't do anything. Like, I never saw this kid do anything wrong ever. And it was sad, because it was just like, I think his parents just dumped him off there, and they didn't want to.
Boarding schools for people like why would you put him there?
I don't know. He had a step parent.
Oh.
Stepmommy didn't want to deal with them. Yeah, I can relate. I was like, yeah, I can see that. Poor kid,
No kidding. So, that's terrible. I'm surprised you didn't see more there, though, because places like that, with all of that negative energy, I'm sure there was abuse of all kinds going on. You've got children with serious mental issues, and I'm just shocked with all of that negative energy floating around, that there wasn't more happening.
I was so focused on what I had to do, and they keep you busy. Like when I went in there, this is what literally happened to me. I had quit school. My mother said, you can quit school. I was so mad, because I should have graduated when I was 15, because I'd gone to the Abeka Academy, and my parents were like, well, we want you to interact with people your age and whatever, and so go to school. We don't want you to graduate early. But my senior year, I literally had like one class. But I'll tell you why. This is what happened. So I was so far ahead. They said, well, you can graduate. You can do it, or you can go to high school. But my dad wanted me to play sports and interact with people. And Anthony, the whole thing. My mother and father told you the whole story from each one of their perspectives. My mom blamed my dad totally. My dad said, no, she was on board with it too, whatever. Doesn't matter. Long story short, I ended up getting pushed around from this place to that place. And so I was told, if you want to drop out of high school, you have to go get your DED, and you have to do it immediately. So the very next, like I dropped that like on a Thursday. Like Monday, I was in there doing the testing for the GED, and I did it all in one day, and I was done. I aced it. It's pretty simple. Well, now it's a little bit harder. They say it is, but I think the kids are just dumber. I'm sorry, but your generations are just dumber. And so I was like, whatever. I did it all in one day, in like 4 hours, and I was done. And I was like, hi, this is all it takes to get out of school. And then I go there, and they tell me, I said, yeah, I dropped out a couple months ago. And they were like, well, too bad.
Yeah.
You're going to go to school here. And I'm like, it's summer. And they're like, it doesn't matter. Welcome to where time stands still. No one leaves and no one will. You're going to go to school. How about that? And so I was like, what? And so I had this teacher, and he was a little gay dude, but he was actually really cool. He was from Mississippi, and he was like, let me tell y'all, little fucker, something. You're gonna work. And I'm just like, I hear this guy talking like this, and I'm going like, who is this jackball, dude? Like, who is this guy? But him and this other lady that ran it, they were actually pretty cool. And she was weird, dude. Like, she would sit up. I'm not making this up. This is weird as hell. We're talking about weird. I'm over there on the computer with the floppy disks and all the, the advancements. And she's just standing behind me with her hands, and she's just like, it's amazing what we got now. And I turn around and I'm like, where are you from? She's like, Alabama. Born and bred, born and raised. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she would say weird things to me, like she'd just be sitting there tapping her pen, and she'd go, you like cornbread? Just be like, and I haven't really thought about it. I guess I could go for some cornbread. Oh no, I'm not gonna make it. I'm just saying if you liked it or not. I'm like,
I was just curious.
Yeah, pretty much. And then all of a sudden, I told Anthony this one time, you and my brother would make fun of me. Remember D was playing the banjo at that time? So no bull crap, right? This guy's from Mississippi and she's from Alabama, and they just bust out into song. Like the third or fourth day I'm there, I'm like on the computer, and I just hear ding, 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 ding. And he starts clapping, and he goes, come on, kids. And I'm just like, what the freaking, it became like, like Romper Room or something. I'm like, what is this? Like, I was like, this is so weird. And when this kid named Mike, who was next to me, he's a little blonde-haired kid, always had his hat on backwards. Literally, he'd been there for a couple months, and he was used to it. He just goes, mm-hmm. And I was like,
yep,
oh,
man.
dude, are you serious? Like, this is just what we do here? He goes, yeah, just go along with it, dude. And he starts clapping. He turns around. He goes, yeah, cool. And he's looking over at me like, yeah, you better participate.
Dying inside.
Better grab a jug and start blowing in it.
It was crazy. She was a very good-looking lady, but she was just weird as hell, And she would lean all on top of you and just be looking over your shoulder, and you wouldn't even know she's there. You're like, whoa, what are you doing? And she'd be like, you're so smart. You're such a smart kid. She I think she had dogs at home that she'd talk to like this. And I was supposed to be like, oh, okay. And she would be like, you want a treat? And I'm like, a treat? Like, what are you going to give me? Like a beef jerky stick from like the dog treats? Exactly.
I'll give you some pemmican.
And this isn't even a skit I'm doing. This is the truth, folks. It's funny, unintentionally funny, but it's crazy. Like, what is wrong with these people? So I just played along. I just was like, yeah, let's, So then they made me what they would kind of be like a trustee, and they were just like, I forgot what it was called. Class monitor. They made me a class monitor. So they'd be like, we're going to make you a class monitor. You're such a good kid. And I'm like, okay, I just was doing work and I was smart, so they thought we can make this kid a class monitor. And so class monitor came with one cool privilege. You could go to the restroom when you felt like it. I'd be like, hey, I need to go to the restroom because I want to get the hell away from these people. And the little skinny dude, he was cool, but he was just weird. And he would just start trying to rap and trying to do poems and stuff. And you were just like, he goes, I wrote this. And I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. I was just sitting there in the beginning of class, and he starts talking and doing this real exaggerated poetry stuff, and I'm like, what in the hell? And so if you knew better, you just kept your mouth shut and you went along with it. We get back to the unit where you're at, where you lived, and I would tell the people there, I'd be like, man, the teachers are weird as hell. And that Cajun dude, he goes, dude, tell me about it, man. He goes, I went down there the other day to grab a kid, because his parents were here or whatever. He's like, and they were like singing some weird stuff with like banjos. I said, yes, dude, yes. And he goes, man, what is that? I was like, I don't know. I'm supposed to be, and these techs were only a few years older than me. They were like 20, 21. They were just like, what is that, dude? What do they got y'all doing down there? And I'm like, they're weird, dude. I'm like, Mark, they are so weird. And he's like, yeah, man. He goes, some kids have talked about how weird they are. He's like, they're not touching you or anything, are they? I'm like, no, they're not touching us. Well, one of them is a little friendly, but no, they're not touching me, but they're weird. They're just bizarre. And then there was a guy that worked in the cafeteria who was just weird as hell. Like if you were the first one in line, he would I guess he thought he was, so he would paint his face as a clown. I'm not even joking. And he would be like, hey kids,
all right,
this is what for food today.
Back up.
Yeah. This is before ICP, I'm just thinking, I'm like, this is a weird guy, dude. And he would turn around and go, hey kids, guess what's on the menu today? And I guess we were supposed to be excited, he'd be like chicken tenders and oh, okay. And he goes, you guys aren't excited. And he would get mad. And by the time he got to you, he was throwing the mashed potatoes on your tray. I'd be like, hey, dude, I like you. You're kind of a John Wayne Gacy-ish guy.
You want to wrestle?
Don't know how to relate to you. But he was like just angry because nobody would like, whatever. So I think it was like Wednesday and Thursday or Wednesday and on the weekend, he would dress up as a clown. Yeah, dude. Like who's in charge of this place?
No kidding. The clowns.
Yeah. I mean, and then so I figured out something psychologically with this dude. Obviously, he needed attention. So I would tell him his name was Percy. And so I'd say, Percy, I like clowns. I lied. I just saw because I wanted extra food. I said, I like clowns, man. I personally do. I said, my whole room is covered in them. He's like, really? You do? Tell me about it. And I'm like, then I'm on the spot. I'm like, oh, I got to continue this charade. So I'm like, yeah, I got them. They're like on the ceiling and stuff. I got them everywhere. I'm like, just in my closet.
My aunt had a room exactly like that.
You told me about that when I was telling you the story. You're like, my aunt had a
yeah.
So I was like, I told him, I said, they're everywhere. I love them. They're great. I have them like little parachutes coming from the ceiling.
Yep.
Have the painting with the clown with the tear.
The porcelain figurines.
He's like, I'm telling you, man, clowns are cool, man. And I'm like, he goes, I worked and nobody liked me, but I worked at a carnival. And I was thinking, I can't imagine why, dude. And I'm just like listening to him. And I'm like, yeah, man, for real. So one of my oldest friends was locked up in there with me. His name is Clay. Shout out to him. You've met him. Anthony knows him. He's attested to all of this. This is a weird crap place that we were at, right? And dude, this guy was like that. And so Clay was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just trying to be friends with this guy because if you noticed at the end of the meal, he goes around and he gives food to kids. He goes, it's random. I was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I was like, dude, watch Percy. When you laugh and go, oh, cool, and you act like you're kind of interested in him jumping around, acting stupid, he will feed you more. He'll give you food. They had a good chow hall.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go around and I'd kind of smile and be like, hey, what's up? And he'd come over and go, you want some more food? I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Yes. Love the clowns, dude. Keep it up, man. I just, whatever it took, and he would give me food, so that was it. I would just
pander to the clowns to get extra.
Well, you know what? The clowns run this country. You got to do.
Yeah. You got to do a little dance for them.
Yeah, and I never liked clowns. They were creepy as hell, and I just was like, he didn't touch me or anything. That was if you touched me, I'd be like, hey, dude, clowns is over now. I'm good. Mm-hmm. But he was just like, thanks, man. And then he sat down with us one day, like toward the end on the weekend, and I was like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And the kids I was sitting with, they were just like, hey, you know what? Hey, look, there's a guy named Percy in the chat. Holy crap, dude.
Turns out it was him.
Dude. Oh, no.
Is your side hustle going to carnivals, Percy?
It's not you, is it?
Right.
Because I was just making all this stuff up about not liking clowns. I actually do love clowns. The first thing I said was correct. I liked the guy. His name was actually.
He was just clowning around about not liking.
He was just trying to make the people happy the best way he could, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Like dressing up like John Wayne Gacy and bouncing around a room full of kids.
Probably had somebody in his house tied up somewhere to a radiator or something, or maybe the lotion in the basket thing. I don't know. His name was Percival.
In the basket.
Yeah. And he told me, he goes, you know, my real name is Percival. And I'm like, oh, wow, what a unique and cool name. I was like, that is awesome. He goes, I hate that name. And I'm like, yeah, dude, people name people stupid things. Your parents shouldn't have done that to you.
Can I have some more food?
It's not such a bad name, Percival. It's so unique.
Percival, it is.
It's so unique.
Very unique. I remember this too. He was
I have played into that.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. People don't understand that. You know, you got to be like whatever. Just like the weird people that ran the school thing. I was just like, and the lady was playing the guitar at one point, and she comes over and she's like doing this little song that she wrote, which was terrible. But I just was like, whatever. And she came up and she goes, I know you don't want to be here, but it's okay. Don't fear, you know, something stupid like that. And she's looking right at me, and I'm like, I'm perfectly fine with being here. I love it. It's great.
It's great.
More misery.
I never have to leave. It's like a vacation.
It's like they hired a bunch of carnies to run the place.
Dude, it was bizarre. It was. And then the lady was singing to me, and I was just like, and I told her, I said, what makes you think that I'm totally unhappy here? She's like, you're always frowning. I said, this is how my face looks. I was like, this is actually not much worse than my home life. So I really wasn't. I said, I've been in a really bad facility. I was in gladiator school, lady. They literally, the TYC called it gladiator school. I told her, I said, I was locked up in a horrible place where you had to fight to get food. I was like, this is not bad. This is actually Club Med compared to, we have a swimming pool here. I only got to get in it twice, but it was whatever. So I told her, I said, this isn't bad. I mean, I'm okay. I'm not getting in trouble or anything. But she was an odd duck. Now, she talked to me about these weird things. She came up to me one day when we were doing the kickball, and the teachers went out there with us, you know, and there was another teacher too. I can't remember her name. She was from Poland. And I remember her from another facility that I had been in. And she was like, oh, I see you again. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I knew you were going to be here. So I got in trouble for you. It's awesome. I'm here. Thank you. It's awesome. Miss Warchick, her name was. And she would tell people, Miss Warchick, like I'm supposed to do that, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm American. I'm going to call you Warchick because we're lazy when we talk.
Call her Rorschach just to mess with her.
Rorschach. So she tells me, she comes up to me, Monica, and she tells me, she's like, you know, there are fairies in those woods. And I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
I was like, yeah, I know. This is before that Matt did that. So I didn't even think until Matt did that. Then I was like, okay, now I know. They really were. So I told her, I was like, I can't remember her first name, but I remember I just called her Mrs. Warchick. I said, Miss Warchick, I want to tell you something. I was like, last night, my roommate, and he was over there talking to himself in the corner. He was weird. He was really weird. He would look at his pencils and pens and talk. I don't think he was talking to them. The kids were like, he talks to his pens. I was like, no, he's just talking. He's not talking to them. I think he's just speaking out loud. But he was weird. And I said, Matt and I saw a fairy, you know, in the woods. And she's like, yes, they're here. They're here. And she was like, I live in New Braunfels. A lot of German people there. And she's like, and they have fairies out in their woods. And I said, yeah, they do. They do. And she goes, and werewolves. She's like, blurted it out. And I told her, I said, you know, she goes, they're real. And I said, I believe you. I said, I have seen one. And she's like, you're lying. And she's like, you didn't tell me that when you were in Austin. Because she used to work at the one in Austin. And I said, well, at that time, I was 14 and I hadn't seen it yet. And she's like, and you're still being bad. And now you're in here. And I'm like, I'm not being bad. Well, I guess by societal, you know, norms, I'm bad. I said, but I'm locked up. But I'm like, yeah, but I don't think that's what had anything to do with it. So I told her the story. And after I was done telling it, she goes, because that's what happens to bad people. I'm like, oh, great. Thank you.
How very German fairy tale.
But she's Polish, but she lived in Germany, yeah, because she had escaped communism, and she told me all about it. And we were talking about communism one day during the whatever, and she's like, "You don't know what it's like," and she started like giving us this horrific lecture. I was like 14 at that time, and I was like, "Holy crap!" You know, I had not really dealt with the horrors of communism. She was one of the first people that woke me up to that reality. Like she goes, "You don't know how good you got it, and you get in trouble, and you come here," until she started to realize, like when I told her about my home life, and she sat there and she goes, "That's horrible." And I was like, "Yeah, it is horrible. It's not fun. It's not ideal. So yeah, I'd rather be here than be there, I guess. But I wanted to get out so I could run around and be a delinquent again, which is the truth.
Yeah.
I really did. I wasn't going to change. I didn't realize what it needed to happen. What needed to happen was a complete and utter change, which didn't happen for years and years and years.
It's kind of hard to when you're surrounded by crazy people.
Yeah.
Like, that's not an environment conducive to positive change.
No.
Banjos and clowns.
It's better in the crunk house.
What the hell?
And it wasn't like a clown every day. He was only a clown on like Wednesdays and like Saturday or something like that. The other days of the week, he was just there. We had just a big, fat, bearded guy, jolly, whatever.
At least he was nice. He wasn't like
he was
creepy with this clown.
I ran into him again one day at the Texaco right there in San Marcos. I was like pumping gas about 3 or 4 years later. I was like 20. I was like 20 and I was dating this girl and we're there and I see him and I'm like, oh shit, that's Percival. And like, I see him walking in and he's like, do, and he's like, goes inside and he's all happy and upbeat. And so I had to go in to get the pump on, but I didn't want to talk to him because I didn't want him to notice that I was being fake and not really his friend.
Yeah.
You didn't want to have to keep up the charade at the gas station?
And I liked exactly
in front of your girlfriend?
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, who is that? And she goes, he looks like the like, well, this is what she said. She goes, he walks like the guy from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I said, yeah, he's kind of is. And she's like, do you know him? I said, well, yeah. I don't know him, but I know who he is. I know of him. And she was like, how? Well, you have to tell this person. I mean, I had been dating her for like 2 years. What am I going to tell her? Like, I don't know that guy. I mean,
it's a long story. I'll tell you later.
That's what I did. I said, I'll tell you when I get back. So I had to go inside and pay. And he sees me and he goes, Josh, hey, man. And I'm like, oh, what's up, brother? And he gives me a hug. And he's a big guy. And he lifts me off the ground. And I'm not a huge guy like him at that time. Maybe 220 pounds. I'm a big guy, but not big like him. He's probably 400 pounds. Mm-hmm. Lifts me off the ground. And he's like, he rubs my hair, messes up my hair. And I had like gel in it, and whatever. And it was all like, I'm like, dude. And he's like, what do you want, buddy? He goes, you want a soda? You want something? He was real super nice. I said, no, I'm good. I just got some gas. He goes, I'll pay for this guy's gas. And then he tells everybody in there that I was locked up at the crazy place, or the reformatory, not crazy, but yeah, man, I cooked. I'm still there. I'm like, he's like, I love my job. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, Percy. Cool, dude. He goes, he's like, dude, I found this place in San Antonio and they have clowns there. And it was like in the mall, right? And he was telling me all about it. I'm like, oh, man, yeah, I think I've been there. And so I was like looking, and the girl I was with kind of like, what is he doing? And so I was looking at her like, come inside, and I was hoping, like mind wheeling to tell her to come help me. So I kept walking. How you kind of walk a little bit with somebody, and you keep walking, and then he kept shadowing me. Yeah. And I was like, well, it was good talking to you, man. He goes, yeah, man, we should go fishing. We should hang out. We should go hunting. All this stuff. He goes, I love to hunt. And I'm like, oh no, wait, I don't want to kill animals with you. Yeah, he's like, I make my own deer meat and all this other, dude. I was like, wow, I bet it's great. He goes, it's awesome. He goes, what's your address? Give me your phone number. I'll send you some. I'll bring it to you. I was like, I live a long ways from here, man. Like, he goes, where?
I live up in Arkansas. I'm visiting my folks. I'm on my way home.
Dude, I told him that I lived in Dallas, and I don't know, we just blurted it out. He was like, where are you living? And I'm like, north of Dallas. And the girl that she's standing there smoking a cigarette at this point. She'd pulled the car around, because I couldn't get away from him. She's sitting there smoking a cigarette, and she's looking at me like, yeah, Dallas. And he goes, are you from Dallas too? And she goes, yeah. And then she just kind of looked at me like, what in the hell is, so I get in the car and I'm like, let's go. And she's like, who is this guy? And I was like, well, I got to tell you, I have a past. I was locked up in a place and he was a clown. And she's like, I realized how ridiculous this sounds. And I'm like, yeah, I was in this place and he was a clown. And he fed us. The window. And I was friendly with him because he gave me food. And she's like, what? And I was like, and so I said, yeah, I had to be nice to the guy. I mean, he was, he was the guy that dealt out the food. And so me and some of the people there were like, and there was this girl, and she was from another unit, it was like a co-ed unit. And she was just like, be nice to the clown, he'll feed you. And I was like, I already know, I figured it out. And so, yeah, I was like, and she's like, so he thinks you're his friend. And I'm like, yes, Yeah, he's my friend. So what? And she's like, yeah, well, you live in Austin. You're going to run into him one day, and he's going to be like, oh, you came all the way from Dallas.
Again.
Again.
I'm in Alaska now.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, man.
I'm visiting on my way back to the airport.
I ran into this kid that used to be in there, and it wasn't Clay. Clay didn't know because I'd asked him one day. So I ran into this guy that was in there, and he told me that he had passed away. So I felt bad. I was like, I felt bad.
Oh.
Yeah. But I mean, I was nice to him. I don't think he had many friends, but he was weird, dude. He was a weird guy, and I wouldn't be alone with him. No way.
No.
When he said go hunting and stuff, I'm like, oh no, I don't. I love animals. I can't. And he goes, but you eat them, and I'm like, yeah, I do. I do eat them. But I'd rather pet them and not eat them. I'm trying to be a vegetarian. I was telling him all kinds of crap. I didn't know what to say to this guy. Whatever. I mean, but it is what it is. And, and so I felt really bad, but, I'm not good at that. Put me on the spot, and make me, I don't know what to say. I was like, yeah, I just made a bunch of crap about the class. I didn't know what to say. You had to say something.
So on your feet, Josh, you got to think on your feet.
Well, you know what? I'm not an accomplished liar. That's the thing. I should be proud of that. Not upset.
My first husband taught me the art of lying. I could lie fast to get out of a situation.
Oh wow! So we know not to trust Monica, folks.
Yeah, don't trust anything. Don't put me on that. Like being in a lot of particular situations, you learn how to not poke the crazy bear and just say whatever you think they want to hear to be able to get out of there.
And Jamie says Josh misled the man. Yes, punish me. I'm horrible for misleading the guy. Well, I mean, it's either that or you eat the rations that they give you. Do what?
Right? You weren't mean to him.
I was not.
He was kind to the kids. It seems he was just trying to make them happy.
Yeah, and a lot of the kids were mean to him.
Yeah, but you weren't.
I wasn't.
That's great.
I wasn't mean to those weirdos that were there singing with banjos either. Literally with banjos and guitars. I wasn't mean to them. That's why they like me.
And being mean. Go laugh your butt off in the closet, but don't be mean to people.
I wasn't mean. I was just I was just one of those people who was trying to survive. When you're in that position, and it's very abnormal. It isn't normal to be in that weird abnormal position, but that's what it was. And these people are clowns. I mean, all of them, even the people, everybody's wearing a mask.
Sure.
When I talked about this with Tex last night. We had a long talk on the phone. I talked to you, but Tex is like, one thing about you, me, all of us, BMR, Boomer. I call him Boomer, affectionately call him Boomer. Krista, Brandy, the whole gang, all of us, we're all kind of a clique. Joe Breezy, if you know any of us, this is who we are. Joe is this way, the same way he is on the show. You are this way, the same way you're on the show. I hung out with all you guys at multiple conferences now, and we're the same people. We're not putting on airs and being like my brother did me that day. Oh, chips, delicious. We're not doing that.
Good evening, milady.
Would you like an IPA lager? Lagers are wonderful. I need to get one.
I hear the fondue here is wonderful.
They're like, you mean the queso? I prefer to call it fondue because it's fun do. It's a French word you wouldn't understand. He didn't do all that, but he could have because he was rolling that night. They were like, your brother's so polite. I'm like, yeah, isn't he? He's an awesome guy. He really is. I'm thinking to myself, this is not who the hell he is. And I was waiting for him to fart any minute and just go, did you hear that? But he didn't.
The ghosts are here. Did you hear that? Do you smell that? Demons.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where, with this guy that I talked to, there wasn't much else to the story. Like, he had an encounter with this thing. And when the last thing that happened, and it ended abruptly too. And this is another thing about that guy's encounter that I really don't understand. He was out hunting and he had traps. Now, I don't personally hunt raccoons, but that's something that they do. And some people do. And he's one of them. And he says, he's like that a lot of the people there, they hunt raccoons. And so he had these traps and he was going out to check them. And he looked up and he saw this creature And at first he didn't recognize what it was, and it was brown. It wasn't black. So that's another thing. Could this thing have been shape-shifting into different colors? But also the question remains, like, I mean, could it have been the same thing? Or was it another creature?
Been a different one, yeah.
He thought it was like a brown bear, but when it came running out at him, when he was checking the traps, it stood up, and it was like a wolf. Same exact thing. And I told him this. I said, now there could be I said, what if what you saw run across the water that day was just looked black because of the twilight? He says, no. Absolutely. Cliff was very specific. He says, no, this was black, and this creature was brown. He's like, I saw it. You know, he goes, and it came right at me, and it was broad daylight. It was like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. He goes, no way. No way. And so I told him, you sure? He's absolutely positive that it was, he thinks it was a different creature. He said it was even shorter than the other one, about 6.5 feet. And so all of a sudden, so he ran, and then he looked back, and it wasn't chasing him. It wasn't pursuing him, and his 2 dogs were already way ahead of him. They weren't tough. They were just, you know, he goes, they weren't really tough dogs, not against something like that. He goes, maybe against a raccoon. They were pretty good about not getting into the water with them, because a raccoon will drown a dog in the water. Yeah, don't let your dogs fight them besides of the rabies, but they'll drown them. Mm-hmm. They will. And so he said he looked back, and there was this thing that was moving, and then it looked like a blur, and it was gone. There again, a spiritual type essence to this thing, and possibly a different creature, or the same creature or same entity shape-shifting. Could it be shape-shifting from the Bigfoot type creature? Could it be all the same creature? Now, here's what, and I'm not going to just take the word of a child, but this kid, the Vietnamese kid, Isaiah, says that there were multiple things that were converging at that time, and that it was being brought because of the energy produced by the mirror, which it sounded like he was describing to these adults as a portal. And these creatures were being drawn to it. Because he told, you know, Leslie, you need to get rid of that mirror. This is a 12 going on 13-year-old kid. Nobody's going to listen to this kid, but yet the kid's predicting people's demise and things like that is happening. And I had to ask this question. I said, the kid couldn't have been like responsible for that. No, the person died of cancer. I was like, okay. I was just wondering, because I was like, I mean, the kid said, hey, this person's going to die. And he's like, I got this new knife. You know, I don't know what this kid's doing. I mean, kids do things like that. I was locked up with kids like that, you know, in a couple different places. I was like locked up like 6 times as a child. You're like, ew. Yes, 6 times as a child. Yeah, I was in and out. But only got in trouble as an adult for 2 or 3 minor infractions. I don't have a criminal record. I stopped the bullcrap. But you know, when you look at this story, this situation here, and what he went through, I really kind of lean toward it being something akin to a fae or a jinn or something like that, because this thing was such a. But like I said, if it is to be believed that this thing was multiple entities converging. What makes that happen? Because we have talked on the show about things like this before, or we've had people come on and tell their encounters, and somebody will come on a Monday and they'll talk about multiple things that happened to them at one time. And I've had to retell people's stories, and I always tell the whole thing. I don't just go, well, give me your Dogman, and then I don't care what else happened to you. Or tell me about this demon you saw, and I don't care what else happened to you. People will message me about one thing, but they've had 5 or 6 things happen to them. Because if one of these things happened to you, more than likely multiple things have happened to you. When I first started doing this, Monica, I actually believed that it was rare for a person to have multiple encounters with different things, and now I know that's the standard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, I think what Tony said earlier, when you see these things, it does rewire your brain in a manner of speaking, so that you're more susceptible to seeing the multitude that is out there, right? The more you see, the more you're going to see. Like, it's a vicious cycle, I think.
Mm-hmm. It is a weird thing, and it is scary to think about, like, running into one of the, because, you know, what happened to this guy, and like, I encourage people to go out and try to find that story, because I can't remember if it was Fate magazine or if it was in a book I used to have, but the guy had been taken
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You know what? I think that story was in that book, Anthony. What was it called? The Dark Fairy. What was that book we read?
I think it was just called Dark Fairies.
Me, you, and my brother all read it.
Yeah.
Dark Fairies.
Oh, that's
Is it
interesting.
Rosemary Ellen Guiley? No.
No. Let me see if I can look it up. I
Dude,
always forget the name.
Yeah, and there was a story about a guy who actually, I don't know if it was in that book or another one I read so many, that this guy in Ireland or Scotland had murdered his wife because he thought that she was a fae. He didn't believe her when she kept telling him, I'm not, and he ended up unaliving her. And then going to trial, and he got away with it. They said, "Oh yeah, you're not guilty."
Bob Curran.
Bob Curran. Okay.
Yeah, Curran. That's the author.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I don't know. What's your take on this? If you had to put a Monica stamp on it, what would you say?
A Monica stamp on the story of the multiple things happening.
Yeah. You probably don't know what happened with Sunday, but there was a Bigfoot type creature. Well, it's Bigfoot type creature. I don't know. Doing things. But yeah, what do you think?
And okay, so then they see the swirling mist with the dog or werewolf shape from the waist up, correct?
Mm-hmm. And I could go into what Rudy saw, but I'll talk about that on Sunday because he has a whole plethora of things too. And I'm set to talk to him Thursday. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow, Thursday.
Okay.
So I'll talk to him on Thursday, and we'll be back on Sunday, and we'll talk about it.
That'll be cool. But if I were to say, I mean, I do lean more towards fae. I mean, my initial thing is, I don't know. Like, I don't want to put a stamp on anything that I can't like easily explain, right? I don't know what it is. It sounds, there's some characteristics that are very fae. There are some characteristics that are like ghostly, for lack of a better term.
You sound like you're stuck. You don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Monica does not know, folks. I will go on record as saying
Monica, I don't know. Well, if I don't know, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you. I mean, some of the things sound like, yeah, absolutely, it could be fae, but I need more detail. I don't know. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to know like details about what happened. I want to interview the guy and ask him the questions I would need to be able to put a stamp on it. You know,
I want to know what it is. I want you to show me. You know, here's the thing. Like what you saw, what could maybe be a werewolf. I don't know. The people seem to be interested in the History Channel of having you want to talk about it. So, what do you think? I mean, are you going to say, hey? It was a completely flesh and blood thing because it just came out of nowhere, right? I mean,
and I told her during my interview, you know, I don't know what that was. I mean, it's easy for me to say I can tell you what it looked like. You know, it looked like a werewolf out of a movie. You know, I'm more apt to say a dogman than a werewolf, just because I feel a werewolf like indicates somebody physically changing, and I have a real hard time that human body can do that. It's just, I have a real hang up that a person's ability to do that. But it also, where did it come from? I mean, I'm in the middle of Dallas. I am in the middle of a major city. In a pretty wealthy neighborhood.
I told a clown that I lived in Dallas. So, I mean, you know, north of Dallas. I was like north of Dallas.
You're up where I live now.
Okay. So I was living with Monica and Chris. I'm up there with Monica and Chris.
Yeah.
I just, you know, but I think that the thing is, you saw something that, I mean, people say werewolf, you don't know. I had somebody tell me one time, this was a native guy. I mean, he was native. He was Mescalero. And we were talking about that place last night with Tex. It's funny. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he says, there's a lot of things out here, dude. And you don't know if the person you're looking at is a person.
That's true.
He told me, Scorpion, and my brother that when we were at the end of the Mountain Gods. He's a full-blooded Mescalera. And I told him, and I told Scorpion, we were sitting there talking to the guy, and the guy was really cool. And I told Scorpion, don't tell him that I'm part Comanche. Don't do that same thing. We didn't get the discount because he's like, I'm Navajo. And the guy's like, oh, cool. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to hook you guys up, man. He goes, I'm going to give you a room, blah, 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 with the view. And I was like, great. And he goes, yeah, he's native too. And I'm like going, He's like, yeah, he's part Comanche. And I'm like, you know what? And then this guy, I'm like, dude, talk about holding grudges.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? That room isn't available now. I'm like, wow. I was like, you know what? I said, my grandmother was Comanche. I'm just, I don't even think about that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, I do. He goes, do you know why my people are up here? I'm like, it's pretty.
Because of the Comanche?
He said, because of the Comanches. And I said, wow, you got a good deal, though. You got to say, you got it going on here. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. He's like, genocide isn't nice. I'm like, I didn't say it was. I was like, I don't even know anything about these people. I was lying again. I was like, finally, I just said, you know what? Don't worry about it. You didn't give me a discount. Don't give me a discount. I don't care. But unless with me, my people they'll throw it off. We're bad dudes, man. Don't mess with us. All right. I'm gonna go win some money. Watch what happens. I didn't win anything. Well, I did get a free buffet. I got it. I'm not bragging, but I played enough to get a free buffet. I'll put it that way.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You lost enough money to pay for everybody's buffet, but they threw one in for you.
I did. I bet you that dude, it was all rigged. They probably hit my card and said, do not let this guy win.
He's a Comanche.
We've given enough to these people. They kicked our horses. They took our land. They killed us. I'm like, what are you complaining about? And he's like, a lot. There's a lot of things, a lot of stuff. Yeah, and Scorpion, you did that. Don't even act. You told that guy. I don't know why you did that. And Scorpion's like, what did he tell you, Anthony? I was trying to be friendly, dude.
Yeah.
Did he say it just like that? I was trying to be friendly, dude.
Yes or no?
Yeah. Like, there are ways to talk to people.
Poor Scorpion.
Well, he told him that, and I was like, that's not a good thing to say. I said, dude, we're right here next to the reservation. I said, how about this? How about you don't say anything about me? Let me talk.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say anything. Don't try to help me in any way. Then he takes it literal. I'm over there pulling the suitcases, and he's standing with his arms crossed. And I was like, dude, are you being funny? And he's like, you didn't want me to help you, dude. He says dude a lot. And my brother's like, help with the freaking bags, dude, at least, and he's just like, okay. Just how he is. But, that guy really did. He got like he was, and he tried to tell Scorpion later on when he went downstairs that his grandmother had told him horror stories about the Comanches. And I'm like, he's exaggerating. Probably not. But it wasn't me.
It's all propaganda.
He had nothing to do with that. Unless you think about reincarnation within your family, then I probably was a Comanche warrior who slaughtered people. But that is in the past. It was all in the past.
I don't have any recollection of that at all.
Scorp says, no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't what? What does that mean? No, he wasn't what?
Like if it makes you feel any better.
Scorp says, I do say doodle. See, he does.
Should have told that guy, look, if it makes you feel any better, I wasn't born yet when you were getting your asses kicked.
Exactly. I said, and to be fair, they started it. Not particularly the Mescalera, but what is known as the Apache races, they did start it. They were brutal and mean to the Comanches, and the Comanches figured it out, and they paid them back a lot.
I'm nice to you, right? We get along.
What part of Native are you exactly?
I am.
What is it called? You're part Native. I know that.
It's Chiricahua.
Chiricahua. Okay. I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure the Comanches they were friendly with the Cheyenne. They traded with them. They were friendly. Their best friends were the Kiowa, and they were very close to them. And they were also very chummy with the Lakota. Right? They traded with them. They traded with the Lakota.
That's far north. Okay.
But they traveled. So if you read about the Comanches and the Lakota, they met like up in Oklahoma to trade horses. And they would have these huge powwows where they would stay together for like a week or two. And they probably interbred with them and the Cheyenne. The Cheyenne were their friends. Every native that really is considered Apache, which isn't really a native, they don't like being called that because that's not what they are. That's like calling somebody caca, like saying Sioux. The Lakota are like, we're not the Sioux. That's calling somebody doo-doo. You don't call them that. Mm-hmm. And it was named that because the Pawnee coined it to the Spaniards. The Spaniards are like, who are they? And they're like, that's the Sioux, because they dip their arrows in buffalo crap. So it was very septic when it shot you, creating sepsis. You're going to die.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's very smart. And the Lakota were pretty brutal. They were brutal, and they were good friends with the Comanches. The Comanches went up north every year in the spring to trade with them. And the Lakota got a lot of their horses from the Comanches. And of course, the Comanches were stealing them from the Mexicans. I tell people this and they get offended. I like when they're like, Texas used to belong to Mexico. I'm like, yeah, okay. And the shoes I sold on eBay, they were belonged to me at one time. And now somebody else is wearing them. Let me go grab them from them. Hey, buddy. Hey, give them back. Let me tell you something. It's not my fault that they sold the country, whatever. Look, let me tell you something. There were less than 5,000 Mexicans in Texas in 1836. Do you know why? One word, Comanches. Brutal. The name for, and I'm not bagging, I'm Hispanic, but the name for Mexican was a derogatory word. It was a bad word that was used by the Comanches. They called them the female genitalia. It was a Spaniard. They asked them what it was, and they said that's what they are. That's what this is a true, I'm not even joking. This is the absolute truth. They looked at them as like lesser, like inferior, which they were because they were small and squatty and didn't ride horses good. Back in the old days, they didn't have horses. It was the Spaniards brought the horses over and the Comanches jumped on it. And they learned animal husbandry. And they were one of the first to, they're called the Lords of the Plains for a reason. I mean, they were the ones that traded with the Cheyenne and the Lakota and hooked them up. Said, hey man, this is what you got to do. And the Cheyenne were the badasses in the West, and the Lakota were the badasses in the Midwest. And of course, the Comanches ruled down here. So when you learn how to master the horse and you could shoot a rifle or a bow and arrow from a horse, you win. They gave the army fits, absolute fits. I mean, it was bad, really bad. Mm-hmm. And you know, there's a movie, Comanche Moon. And was it that one? It was one of the Lonesome Dove movies.
I think it was Comanche Moon
or Dead Man's Walk, one of those two. And the Yankees come down there and they're like, yeah, we're here to talk to Gus, whatever, McCrae, you know, whatever his name is. And he's like, we hear the Comanches are out of hand. And he's over there and he's a blacksmith. It was, what's his name? Tommy Lee Jones's original character, but it was a younger guy playing him. And he was banging on the thing and he looks up at him and he's like, oh, they're out of hand. Now they're out of hand. He goes, Colonel, they've been out of hand for 20 years. Where were you? And now you're here talking about, we're going to take care of things because we're down here doing some stuff. And he's like, good luck, you know, because the truth is you're going to go out there in your lonely fort and they're going to burn you out and they're going to kill you. And the only thing that stopped the Comanches was they killed their food source, the buffalo. They were called the Cossacks of the Plains, and my dad's family, that's their bloodline, Cossack. So when you take that mix, what do you think is going to happen? Of course, you're going to be in juvenile facilities with clowns and people playing banjos. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. It simply happens. All right? Just how the world works. And Percy, I'm sorry for calling you. I just saw the name, and I was like, holy crap, there's a Percy in the chat. That's a weird thing.
Yeah, but the Percy in the chat's actually a female.
Well, maybe Percy came to the chat because the energy drew her. You never know, man. Weird stuff happens. There's a lot of
clown Percy guiding her here.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think the guy literally, though, I think he was just an odd duck who wasn't socially grounded.
Yeah,
I don't think he was a serial killer.
Sure,
he's a serial killer. You know, we don't know.
I don't think it was a serial killer, but yeah.
No.
Socially awkward a bit.
Socially awkward. There you go.
I mean, he dressed up like a clown and danced around in a forced living facility for children.
Yeah. Yes, synchronicities, Bryce. So Joe is a clown, though. We're friends with Juggalo Joe Breezy. He's down with the insane clown posse.
He's down with the clown.
He's a juggalo.
He's a juggalo.
He's a juggalo.
Juggalo tattooed on him somewhere, doesn't he?
I think he's probably got several of them tattooed on him somewhere. I mean, Joe's a trip, bro. He is.
Yeah, he is.
If you catch him early in the day, he's different, right? So I like Joe. He's a good dude, but I mean, he's just very unique personality. He's still your co-host, right? You're a co-host. And so tell everybody it's a Thursday, right? You do your show on Thursday?
Thursday nights at 10 Central.
What's it called? Monica's
Our
World?
Paranormal World, like
joking.
right there. Like right there.
I'm joking. Like, okay, nice if you'd have pointed out. I can't make a joke. You're gonna mess it up. She's like, "Oh, Paranormal World's right there."
Right there. Right there. I'm always pointing the wrong way. This is backwards from.
Oh my gosh! Whatever. Okay. Paranormal Roundtable.
Yes.
And then we go this way, all the way over.
Dude, gosh.
Okay, so that's how they can find you. And then you're on Fridays as Joe's show, right? You're on Friday.
Yeah, I'm on the Breezy Speakeasy at
Breezy Speakeasy. How's that doing? Are y'all getting some people now or what?
Yeah, I think Joe's trying to organize it a little bit more, and I'm helping him with his graphics. Like we're trying to build his channel a little bit.
That's cool. At least you're helping out. I mean, that's cool.
And then on Saturday nights, I'm on with Boomer. I'm on with BMR.
Boomer. I keep trying to tell him to make his people from the members like the boomers. He doesn't want to do it.
Like, I'm old enough that young people would probably call me a boomer, and
you're not a boomer, neither am I.
Neither. I know. No, we're Gen X.
We're
like
Gen
X.
Not
a boomer. Thank you.
We're tough. We're tough. We're tougher than we're literally tougher than the boomer generation. The boomer generation were spoiled. That's that's the generation that spawned the hippies.
They're the ones that neglected us and turned us into what we are.
Latchkey kids.
Thank you. Latchkey generation. You raise yourself. You know, the TV was the babysitter.
10 o'clock news said it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? They had to remind them they had kids.
And I wonder how many parents were like, "Oh crap!" Look and see if they're in their bedroom. Let me go get in the car and drive around and yelling their names, looking for them. Hopefully, the serial killers like Percy didn't grab them. You know, I mean, you're sitting there going like, "What is this?" Good grief, man! You don't even know where you're at. You know what my mom did? This is a true story. Anthony, you know, I've confronted her about this one time, and she just laughed it off. But it wasn't really funny. I mean, it was. But she was like, I was like, "Mom, do you remember when you called Ronnie's mom and I was in my bedroom?" She was like, she called my friend Ronnie's mom and she's like, "Do you know where my son is? He hasn't come home yet." I was in my bedroom playing Nintendo. And her excuse, and Anthony, you know this, we were at Ryan's when she said that. She goes, "He was never quiet. So when he was quiet, I didn't think he was there. So I just called."
Yeah.
And Ronnie's mom, they're out driving around. My dad and my mom leave the house. They're not flighty people either. They're just panicky. So they left the house to go drive around, right? And I'm just in there playing Castlevania. I don't even know what's going on out there. I don't care. And so I'm in there playing Castlevania, and I'm literally I'm in my own little world. And then I hear my parents come in. I hear the keys slam on my dad's like, "I'm gonna whip his ass," and I'm like, "Oh, he must be fighting my grandpa." That's what I thought. You know, he comes in, and then he just goes, "Oh," and I hear him going to the bathroom, and he's like, says the F word, which he would only cuss when he was really mad. He tried not to, you know. And I was like, "What's wrong with him?" So I kind of put the controller down, and I was like, "Was he mad at my sisters? Or maybe they did something, you know?" So I get up and I kind of walk in there, and he comes out of the bathroom. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Well, there you are." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm here." And he's like, he grabs me. He's like, "Where were you?" He starts like screaming and yelling at me. And I'm like, "I was in my room playing Castlevania." My dad's like, "The whole time?" And I'm like, "The whole time what?" And he's like, "Oh, let me call the Jensens." I was like, "What the freaking heck? What are you calling them for?" And he's like, "Well, we called some of your friends, and you know, and I had your friends, you know, parents out running around looking for you too." And I'm like, "What? I've been in my room. Why didn't you check?" And my dad's like, "Well, you're always loud. We didn't. You're usually in there and playing music and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, my stereo's broke." Well, and then he's like, "Well, whose fault is that?" And I go, "You're the one that broke it. You were mad and you hit it." And he was like, "Oh, you got to bring that up." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." It's like dealing with Stan's dad on South Park, except more angry and meaner, you know? And so he walks off and he tells Marianne, "I found him, Marianne. He's fine. He was in his room. Why didn't you check?" She goes, "Why didn't you check?" Nobody checked. 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? It was 9:40. I guess they hadn't heard it yet, you know? So I was just like, I was like, "I'm here since 7 o'clock."
And she panicked. Like, she didn't wait for the news to tell her, "Hey, by the way, your kid isn't home." They're out roaming the streets doing God knows what.
Mm-hmm. she just all of a sudden was like, hey, it's dark. Where is my son? He's not here.
The street lights are on, which is the universal signal for get your butt home.
And you know what they did, Monica? This is what they did. The next day, where all of us kids were out in the living room, and my dad's like, there's going to be some changes here. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, what kind of weird shit are we dealing with now? My dad's like, I didn't say anything. You couldn't. And my dad's like, we're going to change the from now on, you're home before dark. And I was like, I'm already home before dark. What are you talking about? And he's like, and make sure you put your bike, where we can see it. Put it right there by the deck, so I know you're here because you're always on your bike. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I already do that. And he's like, and make sure the chores are done before you go out and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I already do that. It was a Sunday. The Saturday was the day before. And my dad goes, you scared us yesterday. I said, I was here. He goes, it was a Saturday. What were you doing home at 7 p.m. on a Saturday? Do you remember how my dad told you that he was always telling me to go out and play?
Yeah.
I was like, I was home for once. I usually am out, and then you get mad if I'm late. So I came in early. He's like, well, you're always with Keith or Ronnie or somebody. I was like, yeah. And they were doing stuff. It's, whatever. It's the weekend. That's what happens. And he was just like, you always got an excuse for everything. Shut up. And he walks out. And my sisters are like, what is this about? I'm like, because I got lost yesterday and I was in my room. And they were just like, my sister's just like, oh God, rolling her eyes, like totally like, oh my God, my parents are so weird. And then she goes to her room and I go to mine. And then my dad comes in there and goes, look, you just scared us yesterday. And I realized that, I really love you and I don't want anything to happen to you. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. And he goes, from now on, you call and let us know where you're at. I'm like, I already do. I do all those things. They lost me. In the room. My mom has every excuse. She's like, well, he was always doing this, he was doing that. I was like, whatever. Bottom line is you didn't look, you didn't even bother, because my stereo was broken. And what happened was, I had the stereo had the record player on top. So I had these little records that I would play. It was like singles, And then I had a dual cassette. It was spiffy back in those days, right? Back in the 80s. So then my dad, he goes in there and I said, the record player is not working right. The needle needed to be replaced. And he couldn't get it to work. So he smacks it like that and it breaks. Mm-hmm. And my dad's like, this cheap piece of crap, Japanese piece of shit. He's like all pissed. Back then, everything was in Japan. You were like, why do we have this? He was in the Union, right?
Yeah.
So Japan was the enemy. It was like they had just bombed Pearl Harbor the week before. And my dad was like, Sony piece of shit, Japanese piece of crap. And I'm like, Dad, you bought that at Hastings. He goes, that was a mistake. I never should have bought that. And then he's like, and don't tell anybody that I bought that because I don't buy anything Japanese. And I'm like, you did? He's shut up. And he walks out. And I was like, okay. So the stereo is a piece of crap that you bought, right? And now I'm in trouble because I wasn't playing it because it was broken. Whatever. This is growing up in the 80s. This is why we're tough, right, Monica?
That's right.
Why we're tough. Nellie she's tough. My wife, she grew up as a desert rat. She was out there running around the desert, riding a motorbike out there with, the Hills Have Eyes people. You would see them and wave at them. Hi, hey, Hills Have Eyes people. And she'd get away from them as they're running behind her with a fork and a knife trying to eat her.
The chainsaw. Going flailing it around.
But what's funny is me and Breezy, we've talked in private and on the show about being locked up in these places. And Joe, he knows them all. Mm-hmm. Charter, all these.
He was in one of them for a long time.
Yeah, he was. He was locked up, dude. I was like, and we talked about this. And I told him, I said, dude, now I know 3 people still to this day that I was locked up with. 2 guys named Clay. 2 of them are named Clay, literally. And then Joe. And Joe and me were in the same facility in the same summer, but he was there toward the beginning. He was there at the beginning of the summer. I was there toward the end. So we missed each other. I said, dude, we might have been in the same place at one point, but we missed each other by a couple months. And now these people are like, oh, George Turner has admitted that he was in a crazy house. No, I wasn't. I wasn't in no crazy house. I got put into a timeout, basically. And they thought, well, you shouldn't be in, jail because whatever. So they sent me to these places to get help because they thought I needed to not do drugs and drink as a young teenager because I did. I was smoking and I was drinking and doing bad things. I wasn't a good kid. I was sneaking out of the house.
Every kid did that.
I thought everybody did. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because like I didn't sneak out of the house when my dad and me lived. My dad would have beat me to death, dude. I wouldn't have got out the window. He would have just beat my ass. My dad was like, he'd jump up and he'd hear noises, you know. But my mother, when I was living with my mother, I could sneak out. Because, like I said, she didn't check on me. She didn't even know I was in my room when I was like,
Right.
12 or 11, whatever it was. She didn't even know I was in there. That was the year I think my parents separated. And so, like the first time. And then my dad's like, well, mom and me are getting back together. And I'm like, oh, God, dude.
Dang it.
Thought for sure one of them's going to kill the other one. And that's very common with latchkey kids from our generation. That's the truth, man. Like everybody came from a broken home. You did.
Yeah.
Everybody did. I mean, like everybody has step parents. Now you go back to their generation, to the boomers, they didn't have step parents.
Mm-hmm.
My dad did, and that was very, very rare because his mother died when he was 3. And that's very sad. But everybody is from our generation, the boomers, they were just turds, man. They couldn't, they were just, whatever.
They couldn't be bothered, that's for sure.
Yeah. And they were like working, chasing money. And then, there's a gripe on our generation by how they were able to, they're like, well, when I was young, I was able to buy a house and a car. Of course you were, because you could buy that with one paycheck. I mean,
you could work 40 hours a week and have vacation time in an RV and raise a family on one income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try doing that now.
Now.
Mm-hmm. Now we have to get up early and do this and do that. Like when I leave here in 20 minutes, I got to go do the patrol. And Monica, you got to get up in the morning and be a manager. What is it? A project manager?
Yeah. You got to go watch a restaurant get built.
Life is grand, and if we don't do it, then we starve. We don't, and there's nobody going to bail us out.
Where are the wealthy people of Dallas going to get their sushi if I don't build this gosh darn restaurant? Is what I'm saying.
Well, won't someone think of the wealthy people of Dallas?
They're going to get their sushi from the gas station. Well, they will probably get intestinal parasite. How are they going to get that anyway? Sushi gives you intestinal parasites, folks. You eat it? I don't eat it. I want it's intestinal parasites.
Yeah, I'm good with the worms. I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, well, Monica, it's been great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for putting up with the shenanigans, the antics, and the clownery. No pun intended. But obviously, we're running the same circle or whatever, folks. If you want to know Monica and you really want to get to know her, okay, go back to the episodes that she was on with us that we recorded with her, because she gets up close and personal and talks about some personal things. But you would not believe, Monica, I got to say this publicly. I haven't had you on the show since then, but you would not believe how many people have told me that you help them by speaking out. Yeah, by coming out. Who is that? Who is that? Oh, you just creeped me out, dude. You just came walking in and I just saw a shadow because it's dark in that room. And I'm like, what is that, dude? I will remind you that I have things to protect myself here.
Are you trying to be assaulted? Because that's how you get assaulted.
Yeah.
Sounds like salt. It sounds like salty.
Trying
like
to be assailed.
Character. I call it the salty menace because I like olives. I said, but it's not good for my blood pressure. So she drew it. A little olive with a little mask. The salty menace. But Nellie's so creative. No, let me tell you though, people have messaged me and they said you have helped them because of the abuse and the things that you went through, physically, psychologically, whatever, and I mean, people that really helped some women out there.
Well, that makes me glad. That makes me very happy. It's a terrible thing. It hurts my heart really to think of anybody having to endure that. I was so lucky that I got out alive. And, if it lets women know, like, there is light on the other side, you can do it. It's not easy. It's difficult. And, like, I'll help however I can because I know what it's like to feel completely alone and nobody cares. You feel like nobody cares and nobody wants to intervene on your behalf. Nobody wants to get involved, but I don't want anybody to feel that way either.
No,
I will always be in your corner if you are going through that, just so you know.
So, when you stop and you I've said this sounds cliche, but we have such a short time on this earth.
Yeah.
We really do. And so many people they just don't appreciate it. They spend their time being, whatever, messing with people and saying things like, somebody said something ugly about Tex or whatever. And it's like, dude, these people, they're never going to stop. They're always going to be the way they are.
That's right.
And you have gone through real trauma. I have too. And, the world will look at you and think, oh, you're this way, you're that way. And even though you have a right to be that way, you haven't been that way. You haven't gone off the deep end and done whatever. And I haven't either. I could have been a very, very bad, monstrous person even. And I didn't. And I changed my life on my own. Well, it wasn't my own. It was God, Christ, And I tell people that he's the Redeemer and he can change you. And if he could take a cold, hard person like me, that was the way I had to live. I don't think I was meant to be that way, but I was at one time, and changed my life.
Right.
He's blessed me with good people in my life. You're one of them. You and Joe and Tex and BMR and Krista and Brandy and everybody. I'll even throw Donnie Cho in there. He's a
Donnie.
The last that song on Tex's show.
Oh my gosh!
I told Nelly, I said they say Donnie's name way too much. That has to be him. And then he texts Donnie. I was like,
he's the only one with the decent picture. He found the worst picture of so many of them.
You know what's creepy about Donnie is like when he's just always in character, joking, laughing, whatever. But then when he changes it up on you and starts talking serious for about half an hour, you're like, whoa. Because it never happens. And then he's just like very serious with you, and he talks.
I don't know if it's a hook for something. Are you really being serious? Or are you just
yeah. You're sitting there kind of on edge, going like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? This has been 30 minutes. Are you playing the long game with me here? Where are the dingling jokes at? Where's the jokes here?
He's waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, it's going to come. He's going to joke around, and then something's going to happen.
Somewhere. He thinks he gets you in a nice, peaceful frame of mind, and then he drops the Bigfoot dingling on you.
Yeah.
Oh he does, dude. That's what he does.
And I've never met a person so obsessed with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how is this 20-minute conversation about Tekken characters going to turn into werewolf genitalia or some craziness?
Oh my goodness.
Donnie's a character, man.
Episode about Bigfoot erotica books, and we had to read excerpts from he assigned us an excerpt that we had to read, and we had to read it in character. Like, this is a ditzy girl, Monica. You have to talk ditzy. He had BMR reading one of them, and Krista.
Oh, but Monica has to go into it and be like, Monica, this is really how you are. Just go along with it.
I did my Valley Girl voice. I was like, oh my God. Can you believe that?
Like, totally. Like,
it was so gross. I mean, who had to do the work? It was me. Spoiler alert, it was me.
Oh, geez Louise. All right. Well, we had a lot of fun tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been awesome. Monica, one of my dear friends, thank you. Say hello to Chris. Say hello to everybody up there in North Dallas, including me.
Your doppelganger up here.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I look over, the girlfriend at the time was just like looking at me like kind of like blowing smoke, like, yeah, what is this?
Yeah, Dallas.
She was just like, she's like, so then when she was like, you were locked up, I was like, yeah, it was this whole crazy thing, just kind of try to, it's like, she's like, really? Was it just once? I was like, no, it was like 6 times. She's like, what? Yeah, I was locked up 6 times. You don't even know. It was just, I got in trouble a lot. I did a lot of things. I did bad things. And then she was like, yeah, she goes, and then there was this woman that was a nurse at one place and whatever. So there was this weird thing, like there was a nurse lady that I ended up going out with because I met her at the St. David's Pavilion when I was in the treatment center. And she was only like several years older than me, and I ended up dating her later. So this same girl, this is what I'm going to leave with, folks. We walked in to the oh God, it was right there on it's one that closed down, the Mexican restaurant with the purple Ritas. Can't remember the name.
Baby Ace.
Baby Acapulco. Yeah, Baby Acapulco right there on what's it called? By Zilker Park. What's that? Barton Springs.
Yeah.
I walk in, and the lady standing behind the whatever, this is her. Like, this is the lady. And I walk in, and she's like, oh my gosh. And she's really good looking, you know. And she comes up and gives me a big hug and like kisses me on the cheek even. And I'm like, oh, we never really were like boyfriend and girlfriend. We were just friends, right? And this girl that I'm with, she's just looking at, she was real, you know, like, ooh, don't, you know, she was jealous. Like Nellie's not jealous like that, but this woman, she's jealous.
It's a sign of affection to be jealous.
Yeah, there's a little too much affection there. And I'm like looking over and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my girlfriend. She's just like, yeah, and she just walks off and just, you know. She's like, well, she's not friendly. I'm like, yeah, you just grab me and kiss me in front of her. It's probably not a good thing.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So then she seats us, and then she comes out of the restroom, sits down, and she's just like looking at me, throws her purse down. She's a very beautiful woman, but still, it wasn't very appropriate for that. She walks away, and she's like, how do you know that lady? She's like in her 30s. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm in my 20s, early 20s. You know, I'm 20. And she's like, yeah, that woman looks like she's 35. And I'm like, that woman, she goes, is a hooker. I was like, no. I was like, that's horrible. I can't believe you said that. I was like, that's a very nice person. I was in a facility, and she was one of the tech.
I was locked up with her, if you have to know.
She goes, oh, another one of your pals that you were locked up with, huh? She's like, I honestly, she goes, I thought that the clown guy, she's like, I thought that was enough. That was weird. And that you had dealt drugs with them or something, you know, something was, you know, and I said, look, I was like, that woman, she was very affectionate with me, you know, and it just turned into something when I got out. And I didn't know I was going to run into her downtown. You know, it just happened, you know, and she was like, wow, that's incredible. So I was just like, okay. She's like, whatever. She's like, is there going to be any more weird surprises? Oh, there was a whole lot of them. It just happened quite a bit. I knew everybody. You're
a popular guy, Josh.
I was
very social.
Very social, life of the party-ish kind of guy.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. You're just a big teddy bear. Like
I am, absolutely. Full of soft, squishy things.
Back then, you were just a teddy bear. Just everybody wanted to hug you, be around you.
Yeah, she had a problem with the girl I used to date before her because she was like, why are y'all still friends and you're at her house? I'm like, because I'm her friend.
Yeah.
You know, I'm her friend. We're friendly. Okay. Like, you know, she was just like, this isn't normal. I'm like, it's not normal to be friends with your ex. I'm an adult. And just because she was like 5'11" and was blonde and had big, you know, and she was good looking, you shouldn't even be jealous of that. It's not even my type. I told her that. I said, I'm into brunettes. I'm into, what are you, dark hair and green eyes? That is my thing.
That's what I'm into. Yeah.
And my friends thought I was a total stud. They were like, dude, you drive your girlfriend's car. She's a manager at the Taco Bell. So bad. I introduced her to my mother. My mother and her became friends for like 30 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's the worst.
My mother still was friends with her. I would go over there and she'd be there with like her two kids, like not my kids. These are kids that she had with this other guy. And she'd be over there griping about this dude and totally ignore me. She didn't even talk to me anymore. And I was like, hey, what's up? You know, whatever. I'll go to my study and do what I got to do. Because I shared an office at my mother's house. I didn't live there. I had my own place. I was never one of those. I didn't go back to the nest or whatever. And so I had to study there, and I helped my mother, just to help my mother, really, because she needed help paying the mortgage. So that was like, she didn't want charity. So she's like, well, you can use my office. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like your office. She's like, oh, okay. So I was like, you sure, mijo? I said, no, you know what? I could use it. I could do it. And I just did it. So I ended up paying half the mortgage. So that was a little thing she did. I said, okay, whatever. But I would see her there. And my mother would be like, she's such a sweet girl, you know, and it's just a shame it didn't work out. I'm like, yeah, that was like 15 years ago. You're still lamenting that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when Chris and I first started dating, his mother would tell him while I'm sitting right here,
oh God,
how much she wished he would get back together with his ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth, because she liked her so much. She was such a sweet girl.
You say it, dude. It's like,
oh, that is harsh.
But you know, maybe she had a point. I mean, you are a little bit spiteful, you know.
Well, apparently it was his job to marry a virgin. And I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh! Like what is he, Amish?
Yeah, right. I was like, your son is 30 something and he lives at home with you and he's never been married. You're lucky I'm looking at him.
Oh my
Right.
God!
Jeez.
He's like, Christopher.
Tell it like it is, I guess.
Christopher, Jebediah, and Ezekiel have already hitched their wagons, literally, to these beautiful virgins down the road.
Yeah.
These beautiful maidens.
Now here in Ohio, we're
very
a different
quick
kind
to,
of
like,
Amish. And
always talk about Elizabeth in front of me. And I was like, well, yeah, tell
my
me about
mother never
Elizabeth.
did that. Like Maria was another one that I went out with, this other girl, Maria. And I shouldn't even say her name, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. But did my mom liked her too. But when Nellie came, my mother loved Nellie. Like that was it. There was nobody else. I mean, Nellie she told me, she squeezed my hand at dinner and she says, this is the one, do not let her go. I was trying to pull my hand away. I'm okay, Mom. She's like, do not let her go.
I'm not kidding.
She's like, how many more chances are you going to have? This is it. And I'm like,
how many more chances are you going to have?
Okay, I'm going to pull my hand away now. And my mother would embarrass me too. My mother, so one time I was at dinner. Anthony was there, and I was trying to flirt with the waitress. This is when I was single. And it was probably several years before I met Nellie. It was a while, and so I was single, and so there was this really attractive woman. She was a Hispanic woman I'll never forget. And she was from Mexico, but she spoke like good English, and she was very beautiful, like beautiful. I don't know why she was waiting tables. She didn't last long. Somebody snatched her up, I'm sure. But I was there, and she was flirty with me, and she saw the jewelry. So she probably thought, oh, and so I was like talking to her, and I didn't even realize. I was like, yeah, what's up? What's up? And then Anthony goes, dude, you want to tell him what I was doing?
Yeah, he was so wrapped up and like flirting with this girl that like how like
Scorpion in there laughing. Shut up, man.
Room.
He was there too.
But like how like sometimes when you won't pay attention to your body language, so you'll kind of be like twiddling or something.
Sure.
Well, what he was doing is like dipping his finger in the refried beans on the plate, and I'm looking down, going like, dude, what are you doing?
And he, she didn't notice it until y'all said something. And neither did I, but still, it wasn't important. I just was embarrassed. And then I looked at Anthony. If looks could kill, I would have struck him dead. I was sitting there and I was like, really? So what's
it's a waste of food.
And but it was actually your beans. That's why
Yes.
he goes, dude, you get your finger in my beans.
Dude, I was hungry, man. I came to eat, not flirt.
Well, that's you, dude. That's you. That's your problem, bro. And so it sounds like a you thing. So,
well, yeah, it's a me thing. It's my beans.
My tia,
you want to put your finger in your beans? Do it all day.
Oh my gosh! And you knew what you were doing because Tia Hova just started in, and she goes, "Mijo, why are you flirting with this woman? She's from Mexico. You don't understand how those people are over there." And she was standing right there, and she's like, "And don't put your finger in Mijo's beans anymore. He might want to eat those." And I was like, okay, go. Thanks for talking to me. I was like embarrassed. I was like, I was like this. I was like, oh. And then she was like, "Como te amo?" So I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm Wayne. Whatever. Just Clint Eastwood. Doesn't just go. Please don't look at me. I never went in that restaurant again.
I bet.
Never went in there.
I wouldn't drive down that street for a month.
I didn't drive down the street forever. I'd go around it. And then when they moved into the new place, my tia was like, "We have been to mariachis quite a bit. I want to go over the Carral Lasagna." I said, "No, we're not going there because Isabel or whatever the beautiful Spanish woman's name is probably there." And she remembers me as the dumbass with my finger in the beans, and y'all were all making fun of me. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to do it. I'm not going there. She's like, "Well, nobody cares what she thinks." I'm like, "I do. I absolutely do, because I look stupid, and I hope she forgets me."
She's gonna remember
watching
that.
this going like she's changing through the channels and novellas, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, that's the guy who put his finger in the beans. What a clown."
He learned it from the best. His name was Percy.
Oh my gosh. You know, I mean, it's just like, dude, I can't win for losing, dude. It's like if I wrote a book about myself, you have to tell the good with the bad.
Yeah.
And there were some embarrassing things I did. Like I made fun of people at the beginning of the show about saying, "Hey, this person thinks I have an Australian accent." I've said things to girls. I mean, you know, I've said some things. You know, I've never said anything like I'm a CIA operative. You know, somebody told Nelly that. You know, give me a break, dude. I had some better ones though. Like I told this one woman that I was a lumberjack. It just sounded good. Yeah, it just sounded good. She was like,
totally look like a lumberjack.
I did, and I looked like it back then. And she's like, you got so big muscles. Why? She was from Europe. She was talking like that. She goes, you got the big muscles. Why? You're so big muscles. And I was like, I'm a lumberjack. I'm like, why did I just say that? That was a stupid. And then I wanted to backtrack on it. And my brother walks up and goes, hey, when are we going to go chop those trees? I'm just like, get away from me. And he doesn't get away. He just buzzes around like only a brother could do. And he's like, yeah, my little brother's a lumberjack. Yeah. We were up there in the Klondike. I'm like, that's gold. That's not cutting trees. He's like, where are we cutting trees at? I'm like, Montana.
Minnesota. I don't know.
I didn't even know.
Maine. Where they're all.
He goes, you go to Montana? When? I'm like working at a club. I'm like, yeah, on the weekends. And she's like, but it's the weekend. I had this weekend off. And how long are you going to be in town? Because I'm going to have all the weekends off while you're here. And of course, my brother throws it out there and he's like, he's here every weekend. And then he walks off. And I'm just like, thank you for embarrassing me, King Dibbles. I appreciate it. Thank you. He's laughing about it. He thinks it's hilarious. Well, the joke's on you because I didn't hook up with her because there was a language barrier. All right. So there.
I can tell you a story about how that didn't stop Chris.
Oh my gosh. Leave Chris alone. He's a sweetheart.
Poor man gets really no breaks from me.
He seems like a nice guy, though.
He's a very nice guy.
Yeah, he seems like a good dude, man. He seems very, like, you know, I could tell like the paranormal thing wasn't his thing, but he was cool. Like he was just there and he was okay.
He's still supportive.
He's not clearly a social person, and when he's around a bunch of people he doesn't know, and I'm relaxed and having fun because I know all you guys. He's awkward. But
my brother posted.
How many trees would you chop for a Klondike bar?
You know, those commercials got so out of hand. They're like, hey, what would you do for a Klondike bar? Huh? Would you flash people? Would you kill a man? Huh? Would you jump in front of a train? Or would you throw your mama from a train? Like, dude, stop with this. I don't want to do any of that for a piece of ice cream.
Would you go to the bank and leave the money at these specific coordinates?
Would you throw the chocolate back at your mom? Huh? Would you do that? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything. Well, I might. I mean,
boomerang, yeah.
Monica's like, yeah.
Chocolate.
I'd probably do that for a Snickers bar. Not even have to be cold. I mean,
I might do it to my mom for a drink.
Oh, gee.
I don't know.
Monica's thinking about it. All right, Monica, we've had a great time. We always laugh every time we're hanging out, whatever. The funnest conference, though, I've been to a lot of them now, was the one with Tex up there singing. And man, let me tell you something, folks. You don't know. He can sing. He can really. And that guy, one of the Kling brothers, they used to have the show Ghost.
Wow, his voice was amazing.
He got up there and he just belted out Johnny Cash. I looked at Krista and I was like, and Brandy and everybody, I was like, what? And Krista was like, yep, he can sing. And Tex was like, yeah, dude, he's got some pipes. I thought Tex was like, he could sing. But as he got more intoxicated, he couldn't. That was the thing. And Tex admitted, he goes, yeah, I'm not going to be able to sing the next hour. I'm like, good. But this guy got up there and he was amazing. And it just sounded like Johnny Cash.
He sounded exactly like Johnny Cash. It was
crazy. It was unreal.
Like they were playing an album. It was insane.
Yeah. You know who else could sing is Ken Gerhardt.
Oh, he's been in a band forever. He was in a band when I first met him 22 years ago.
Him and Lyle can both sing, dude. I have my wife has, well, so do I. We have one of Ken's songs, and of course I have Lyle's songs on there too, but Ken's on the playlist. You know, and I was eating dinner with them one day, and I said, man, I was looking around, I was like, I'm the only one who has no musical talent here. And Ken goes, but you can sing, or he goes, you can talk, you can orate. I said, I can talk all day, but I can't sing like you guys. they can sing, man. And
Not everybody can. I mean, it's just okay. When you're doing karaoke, you're up there trying to impress people, or you're just up there having a good time, like I was, because clearly I cannot sing.
I'll let you say
Especially
it. I
when
don't
I'm
want to say anything.
drinking, I cannot sing. I used to be able to sing. I haven't done it in so long now. When I try, I sound like somebody stepped on a frog.
Oh my God. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good.
It wasn't good. It's not. I know that. But I'm up there having a good time, right?
It's karaoke. But then some of those people were just like, they should have been on like the View. Was The Voice, or what is it called? What is that show where they?
Voice.
Yeah, what is it? The original. What was it called?
American Idol.
American Idol. These people should have been on American Idol. American Idol would have been. They would have knocked it out. Why didn't they? Because some of those people were really good. I mean, they were amazing. So you weren't like bad, but you were a little above average. But I think if you weren't, like you said, if you weren't drinking, you probably would have been better. But those people were that was abnormal. How many? There's one after the other, and I'm like, why are they all such good at? Why are they all so good at singing?
I regretted my choice of like choosing to get up there at the very end. Like, why did they have to end with me and Krista up there? That was embarrassing.
If we ever do another conference, I know you're probably going to be at the Crossing Realms. Is that what's called?
Oh yeah, I'm one of the hosts. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be there. I probably won't, but I mean, if I ever do another conference, I'm going to sing.
Yeah, we should.
And then my enemies, the ops, as we call them, they will probably take it and go, here he is trying to sing evil satanic verses, and it's horrible.
Play it backwards.
It's back mask. You can hear him saying, "The devil, I love the devil, love the devil." That devil is in his heart. It's in his heart. I'm telling you, the devil's there. The devil's in his heart. Anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in, Monica. It's been a blast. I always have fun with you. We have fun. We do. I have fun with all of you guys, man. Great group of friends. Couldn't ask for better friends in this community. And what's funny is, like, you were at my the first conference, and I'm not even gonna say his name, but I thought you were that guy's, and you were like, "Oh hell no!" And I'm like, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, you asked me. I think my initial reaction, I couldn't help it. It was a visceral reaction. Was ew.
You were so, and Starscream was like, "What did you say to her?" Because I was like, I just sat down and I said, "So you're so and so's girlfriend?" And you were like, "Ew, no, hell no!" I was like yelled at me. I got up. I was like, "Hey, sorry, I didn't,
Do I look like that's what I need to date?
Do you know who told me that though? Ken and Lyle told me that, and I was like,
"What?"
Yes, they did.
I know where both of them.
I asked David and Chad if that was the case, and they were just like, I don't know. You'd have to. I was like,
I think they were tracking with you.
Why did you say that? And it was like, Ken is like, I thought that was the case, and then Ann was like, really? I'm like,
no, that's not true, because I told Ken what you said, and Ken goes, "What'd you say?" And I said, "Ew."
And what did he say?
He said, "That's a good response."
Yeah, because he had already had an issue because of what had happened the week before. And then Lyle had petitioned me and said, "Hey, and I'm not gonna say the guy's name. I'm not gonna get into any. I'm gonna be very vague. I'm good at being vague on this." But he was like, "Hey," and I said, "I thought that's what you said." He goes, "Well, maybe I did, maybe I didn't." I was like, "Oh, okay. So you guys, you turds."
Oh, I'm gonna take that up with Lyle now.
Because Lyle was
getting a call in the morning.
I called him and I was like, "Hey man," because we were talking it was a few months ago, whatever. And he checked on me. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. Because I was going through some hell, and he messaged me, and I was like, and I told him, and you came up. I don't remember what it was. And I said, he goes, "I wouldn't lie to you, man." I said, "Except when you told me that Monica was with so and so, and then she bit my head off." When I said, he goes, "Oh yeah, well, that was Ken." I was like, no, you backed him up on it. And he's like, "Well, David was there. He didn't say anything one way or the other." And I was like, "David didn't want to be involved."
David was like,
Starscream thought I had offended you. I said, "I guess I did, but I thought I was told that was the case." Because I wanted to apologize because me and him had kind of had butted heads, and I thought that was you. So I thought, hey, I didn't mean to fight with your boyfriend. And you were just, "He's not my boyfriend." And I was like, okay.
Oh.
I think it was because you were always, I'm not going to get, because then people know what I'm talking about. But that was the case. They thought that, and you were just very adamant, like, no, hell no.
It's
He's an odd duck.
He's an odd duck. Extremely happy if that were the case. That is a negative ghostwriter. No.
Yes. So yeah, but that was a fun conference. It was a big conference.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of people.
And it was so well put
Awesome.
together. I just wish you guys would do another one because I had so I mean, of all the conferences I have been to over the eons that I've been in this, that was the most fun I've had. Like just
until you guys conference comes in I think that one in
September.
September will be the best conference ever. I really do. I wish I could go.
Missouri. Richmond,
Garitano has asked me if I was going to be there, and I said, "Nah, I'm not. I can't do it. I got too much going on because we have a merger going on with our company. See, I thought we were being bought out at first, and I was like, what? Because I was like, well, why am I not? And then found out, but it's merger, but we're absorbing. So I was like, what is this? And so it's a lot. I got a lot going on. Folks, pray for me, please. I need your prayers. I got a lot going on. I really do. And I need help with all the prayers I can get. Just please lift me up to God. If he finds me worthy, so be it. I just hope that, it all works out and everything works out. But I think I'm going to be hectic time for me at that time. And I thought about going, and I thought about, you know what, I should just go up there and then go to the Northeast from there, and enjoy the fall and be gone for a month. And then I thought about it and I was like, that's a pipe dream right now. I couldn't do that because if I do that, then I'm going to have to neglect the show and my job. And it's going to take a lot of work, new people, new philosophies, new ways. It's going to grow, but in the short run, it's going to be painful. So there's growing pains. I got to deal with it. So Monica, let me let you run. Thank you, paratroopers, for showing up. Thank you to everybody who donated, especially Deborah. My gosh, Debbie Cawthorn. Look at that. Great. Awesome. And everybody else is like, oh, she got it. We don't need to donate. Thank you, guys. It's like you took care of all of us. Yeah. So that's from all of us. Put my name on there. Don't you hate that one friend who's always like, hey, you're giving some money to this? Let me put my name. Get away.
Find my name.
So don't put your name on there because you didn't help. I'm like the little red hen with that. No. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you. And I'll see you, Monica. Good night.
Yep.
All right, bye. So Monica Rollins, always a fun time, whatever. And but the show, we always have fun. That's what they hate us so bad. They're like, ooh, they're spreading knowledge and telling encounters, and people come on and tell their encounters, and I hate them. They're having fun. He's laughing. He's fat. He's got a little cherub head. I'm strangely attracted to him. Exactly. You can't help it. You can't help it. Because I can do this. Look at that. They hate me, but they love me some me, but they hate me too. You wish that you could touch that. That's what it was. That's what it is. And you can't.
I forgot to turn this on the whole time.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
I was wondering why I looked different. I was like,
I forgot all about this little light. I could have sworn it was on. Oh, well.
Now I feel like I'm being interrogated. They're like, what did you do? Were you on the docks on Saturday? I was like, yes, but what were you doing there? What were you buying? And you're like, okay, all right. I admit it. I bought 3 cases of Pokemon cards. Please don't tell my wife. She told me to stop. I can't stop buying them. I'm trying to get the Charizard. I'm just, I got a problem. And she don't buy Pokemon cards, but I do buy sports cards, but I haven't in about 4 or 5 years. But, I'm hoping one day to start up again. You have that one project you think is going to happen one day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, like the old beat up Chevy in the backyard or whatever. One day, one of these days.
One of these days, that's what's going to happen. Well, for women now in our society, and this is a slight at all women, you buy exercise equipment and you look at it and it becomes like a place to hang your clothes. My wife doesn't. Thank God she don't do that. But I know a lot of people who do, like your mom.
Buy it from infomercials.
You walk by your mom's, what is that, the den?
Yeah.
And she's got like those 2 pieces of equipment, nothing but clothes. I was like, oh, cool. That's the expensive clothes rack. Awesome. Kidding, women. I'm kidding. Calm down. Don't be all like getting all, whatever. We're good. We're just playing. All right. We're just playing. We just funning. All right, guys. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you when it's Friday. Well, probably not going to have a show Friday. I have a lot to do this week. I really do. I'm sorry. If a guest pops up and says, hey, I booked you, would you book me, whatever, I'll come. If not, then I'll see you Saturday or Sunday. So probably not going to do any more Fridays. we didn't get a very good crowd in or whatever. And yeah, so Tuesdays will probably be the membership only show starting pretty soon. All right, guys, I love you and good night. Oh, wait, before I go, I just wanted to tell you, this is the song that we were talking about. We played at the beginning. We'll play it out. And it's from Yates, spelled Yeats, but Yates, whatever. And this is a song that Nelly wrote. She wrote this song. She wrote the other two, what is it called? The Telltale Heart, yeah. And the one based on
Robert Frost, the
yeah.
Less Traveled.
And then The Raven from Edgar Allan Poe. So here's the one from Yates.
There's no place for old men, a breed going extinct, as the youth coddles each other, and love appears to be in the air. Breeze singing and trees living, a time of generations dying. The sea is full, yet so many are falling. Many born to die in neglect, with their unaging intellect. To ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go. I shall transcend this life so bold. How age makes a man invisible. He wanders alone, tattered as his clothes. Forgotten soul finds song in his heart. Monuments of magnificent, the seas have taken me to Byzantium. To ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go. I shall transcend this life so bold. Sages standing in holy fire, spiraling as the masters of my soul sing. Desire overwhelming, don't deny but consume my heart. I know not what it is, but take me to eternity and unknown things. To ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go, and I shall transcend this life so bold. Once free from this body, I'll never come back again. Not to this place I'll be where goldsmiths work. To entertain the lords and ladies of Byzantium, it matters not what is the past, or what is passing, or is to come. To ages to be forgotten, the world is promised to the young. I will travel to eternity where age cannot go, and I shall transcend this life so bold.
Muted. That's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being the best part of what makes PRT by being a listener. Please like and subscribe and let other people know. Nellie's got a lot of good music. She's got several songs that haven't been released yet. This is an album she's working on. It's called Dead Poets. The last album was called Monsters. There were 10 songs on there. And then she's got another album that's in the works too. There's like 5 songs on there, but it takes time. It's not something you can rush. And she's been working hard with these for a while. And she is a bit of a perfectionist, so she tries to like make sure that it's correct. And there's a lot of going back and forth. So, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you. Good night.